Chapter 287. The people who understand you the most are not only your enemies, but also the people around you. Although the willow tree's status in the family was greatly reduced due to his disfigurement, it was still very easy to arrange a confidant by Lu Qingming's side. It was also because of the willow tree's cooperation that they were able to find traces of contact between Lu Qingming and the people from the armory. It was also because of the willow tree's selfless help that Fang Yan was able to find the hiding place of the armory killers. Without the willow tree's help, Lu Qingming wouldn't have come to this place at this time. Therefore, the people who can hurt you the most are not only your enemies but also your family. The latter is impossible to guard against. Lu Qingming didn't expect to meet the willow tree here. His emotions still couldn't completely calm down. He stared at the willow tree with a gloomy face and said, "Childish? Yes, in your heart I'm always so childish. You always look down on me and always treat me as an idiot. Am I an idiot? Of course not. How am I worse than you? How am I worse than you? If you didn't have a good father, how could you always be able to stand in front of me in every situation? Do you think you can hide your sinister side by being crazy all day long? Do you think you're humiliating yourself by playing with a few women? Lover of the masses, do you know that every time I hear people call you that, I sneer in my heart? Who is the real childish one? Yes, I've always wanted to replace you. I've always wanted to become one of the new 4 prodigies of Huaqing. I've never hidden my thoughts. You were stabbed by Lu Chaoga and your face was cut by Fang Yan. I'm very happy to hear these things. I know my chance has come. The Lu family can't let a loser and a disfigured person stand on the stage. If they choose again, I'm the most suitable candidate." Lu Qingming looked at the willow tree and said, "If you were me, would your thoughts be different from mine? When the opportunity comes, wouldn't you reach out and grab it?" "Same." The willow tree said frankly. "Maybe my thoughts are a bit more extreme than yours. I'll even pray at night before I sleep, praying that you will never stand up again and lie on the wheelchair like a waste for the rest of your life. I didn't cut your face and you being cheated has nothing to do with me." Lu Qingming said unwillingly, "Why do you hate me so much?" "I don't hate you," said the willow tree. "I don't hate you at all. I still think of you as my younger brother." "Little brother? The little brother that you betrayed?" Lu Qingming sneered. He had waited for so long, he had purposely raised his voice, but until now, not a single member of the armory had rushed over to help. He knew that they were all dead. When he saw Fang Yan and Lu Shu sitting on the sofa in the living room, he knew that they were dead. If they weren't dead, how would Fang Yan and Lu Shu dare to sit on the sofa in the armory? The armory was an assassin company that researched gunpowder and all sorts of genetic weapons. Were they not afraid of being blasted into ashes? Previously it was just a suspicion. Now he could finally confirm it. The willow tree stood up. He walked towards Lu Qingming step by step. His walking posture was very ugly, swaying from side to side like an old duck with an injured left leg. The middle-aged bodyguard took a step forward and stood in front of Lu Qingming. That was his only protection. The willow tree waved his hand and signaled the middle-aged bodyguard to go away. "Uncle Ming, get out of the way," Lu Qingming said. "If he wants to kill me, you can't stop him." The middle-aged bodyguard's face was full of unwillingness, but he could only step aside and let the willow tree pass. The willow tree stood in front of Lu Qingming and looked at his handsome facial features that were controlled by anger. He smiled and said, "From childhood to adulthood there are so many brothers in the family, and the 2 of us have the best relationship. To be honest, I don't like you and you just said that you hate me very much. However, we are the 2 best people in the Lu family, at least we all think so. Therefore we must live together intimately so that the elders have enough confidence in us. How can a person who can't even unite his brothers and family become the heir of the family? I have always thought that I am the heir of the Lu family. At least, others also think so. Therefore, I want to maintain the demeanor of an heir, and I want to unite all the forces around me that can be united. However, when I found out that you were doing the same thing as me, I began to dislike you from the bottom of my heart. Now, do you know why I said that you are stupid? Because you exposed your ambition too early. If you were in your position, what should you do? You should be hostile to me, you should be my enemy everywhere, and at the right time you should stab me with a knife. This is what you should do. This is the attitude that an unwilling competitor should have. I know that there are broad-minded people in this world, but I also know that that person is definitely not you." "I don't hate you." The willow tree looked at Lu Qingming and said, "I don't have any reason to hate you. Because you are the same as me, a poor climber. When I climbed halfway up the mountain, I accidentally fell down. Although it wasn't to the extent of being smashed to pieces, I was riddled with scars. You are my heir. You climbed up the road that I walked, but you were dragged down by me who was unwilling. You are also a poor person, why should I hate you? If you don't hate me, why would you join hands with Fang Yan to deal with me? If you don't hate me, why would you betray me like this? Lu Qingming pointed at Fang Yan who was sitting on the sofa and said, Did you forget how he hurt you? Did you forget how he humiliated you? He scratched your face, broke your legs, threw you down the stairs. If it wasn't hatred, then what reason would make you join hands with him to deal with me? Did you forget what I said just now? Both of us are climbers, but the top of the mountain can only accommodate one person. Therefore, we both have to do everything possible to kick our opponents down the mountain, just like how you secretly ordered the people in the arsenal to assassinate Fang Yan, but deliberately led the clues to me. Don't you also hope that Fang Yan will treat me as his mortal enemy, and then the two of us will fight and I will be completely eliminated by him? That way no one will stand in front of you anymore, right? Yes, you did a good job and Fang Yan did put the focus of suspicion on me. However, have you ever thought that there is a fatal flaw in your plan? That flaw is me. You want to tell everyone that this matter was done by me, and Fang Yan also suspects that I did it, but I know that I didn't do it. I have nothing to do with the arsenal. In this way you will easily be exposed. Moreover, you thought that even if I guessed the truth, there is nothing I can do because Fang Yan and I are mortal enemies. No matter what, I will not run to Fang Yan and tell him that this matter wasn't done by me. Lu Qingming sneered and said, In the end, I underestimated your shamelessness and cowardice. I really didn't think that you would run to cooperate with Fang Yan. Anyone who has suffered such humiliation and injury would not do such a thing in the face of their enemy, right? So, this is where you are inferior to me. Lu Shu said. A real man knows when to yield and when to stand tall. Yesterday's enemy becomes today's friend. This is something that happens every day in the business world. Why do you find it hard to understand? What I find hard to understand is that you would cooperate with a person like Fang Yan. Lu Qingming said. Fang Yan is as cunning as a wolf dog. Aren't you afraid that he will dig a hole to bury you? You worked hard, but it was all for naught. Doesn't it sound very sad? Why can't I cooperate with a person like Fang Yan? Lu Shu asked with a smile. If I cooperate with Fang Yan, I can get what I want. We are mortal enemies, but we can advance and retreat together. If I cooperate with him, he will help me regain the position of the Lu family's successor. If I cooperate with you, will you give this position to me? Obviously this is impossible. Because only the two of us are the most direct competitors. So, it will be very difficult for me to leave the winery today? Lu Qingming asked aloud, but his eyes were looking at Fang Yan who was sitting on the sofa and listening to the conversation between the two brothers with a smile. He knew that the decision-maker here today was that man. His brother, Lu Shu, was only a receptionist. Fang Yan picked up a cotton swab from the table and picked his ear, then said, Don't ask me about this kind of thing, I'm not interested in other people's family business. But I'm a narrow-minded person, no matter who hurts me, they won't be able to laugh it off. Lu Shu reached out his hand, lightly patted Lu Qingming's shoulder, then said, You've led the Lu family to the wrong path. You even naively thought that you've allied with the Jiang family and the Gu family. Don't you know that you have to listen to the opposite of what they say? They call you brother on the table, then turn around and stomp you to the ground. Their words can't be trusted, they aren't good people. I need a chance, the Lu family also needs to make a new choice. All sacrifices are worth it. Lu Shu stretched out his arms and embraced Lu Qingming. He gently patted Lu Qingming's shoulder and said, Thank you, my good brother. Lu Shu's actions were very kind, and his voice was very gentle. It was like an older brother comforting his injured little brother. Their feelings were so sincere, their hug was so touching. No matter who saw them, they would think that this was a pair of brothers who had a very good relationship. Lu Qingming's head softly rested on Lu Shu's shoulder, his eyes were wide open, and blood was flowing from the corner of his mouth. He had a lot of unwillingness, but even more than that, he felt pain in his heart. There was a shining knife stuck in his chest. Chapter 288. There are many dark and damp corners in this world. If your heart is in full bloom, the darkness will always exist in places you can't see. Lu Qingming died. He died in the hands of his brother. That sharp knife stopped in a very good position, piercing his heart. Lu Qingming's body was lying on the shoulder of the willow tree, his face full of unwillingness and disbelief. But who was willing to listen to his grievances and complaints? You madman, you can even kill your own brother. Uncle Ming pointed at the willow tree and roared. He was an elder of the Lu family, responsible for protecting Lu Qingming for many years. It wasn't that he hadn't heard of brothers being castrated, but when he saw it with his own eyes, he still found it hard to accept. The willow tree expressionlessly looked at Uncle Ming, his eyes full of sadness. Uncle Ming, you don't understand. When a person has to force himself, betray morality in his own heart, that kind of state of mind, really makes people uncomfortable. He waved his hand, and a man in black behind him rushed straight towards Uncle Ming. Uncle Ming didn't have time to say another word, and he was already fighting with the man in black. The willow tree picked up Lu Qingming and walked step by step towards the sofa. He put Lu Qingming's body, or rather, corpse, on the sofa, and then sat next to Fang Yen. Fang Yen sat on the far left and Lu Qingming sat on the far right. He sat in the middle of the two. This way, from a distance, it looked like three men sitting side by side, watching a wonderful play in the living room. Fang Yen glanced at Lu Qingming and helplessly said, "Don't be like this, okay? You're making me very uncomfortable. You killed your cousin, which proves the fact that you're a scumbag and a beast. Now that he's dead, what's the meaning of carrying him to the sofa? This can't atone for your sins, and it also adds another charge of being a hypocrite. At least that's what I think in my heart. I'm a bad person but not a beast. Bad people also feel guilty, it's just that you don't want to believe it," the willow tree said. He felt guilty, so he gave Lu Qingming the least amount of respect. When he was sitting, he didn't allow Lu Qingming to lie on the ground. At any time he could be trampled by the two guys who were fighting. So what if I feel guilty? Saying sorry while stabbing me? If I meet such a bad guy, I'll just kill him with one slap," Fang Yen said coldly. He turned to look at the willow tree and smiled amiably again, saying, "Of course, you are an exception." Who was Lu Qingming? He was the person in charge of an evil organization like the Arsenal. He had repeatedly dispatched killers to assassinate innocent people and harm teachers. Do you have any idea what you just did? You're the hero of the people, getting rid of evil for the people. At least you're my hero. Fang Yen patted Lu Shu's shoulder and said, "Not everyone can put righteousness before family. People who could do this were definitely not good people. My condolences." The willow tree said nothing. He knew that Fang Yen was mocking him, and he also knew that when he stabbed his brother to death, Fang Yan's guard against him immediately rose by hundreds or even thousands of levels. He even knew that if he didn't do it, Fang Yen would personally kill Lu Qingming. Since Fang Yen knew that he was colluding with the Arsenal, he would certainly not let him walk out of this winery alive. However, this matter had to be done by him. Fang Yen would also force him to do it. This was a bargaining chip for cooperation. If he wanted to gain Fang Yan's trust and make them close, he had to do this. There was no other candidate, only his brother. Not everyone's sacrifice was meaningful, and not everyone was qualified to sacrifice for a great ideal and goal. Most people died in vain. Fang Yen was a considerate man. He didn't entangle with Lu Shu on this issue. That would be like cutting the flesh on someone else's chest and then sprinkling salt. He looked at the man in black in the middle of the living room and said, "Is he Qin Pu's disciple?" Qin Pu was Lu Shu's cart pusher. In order to protect Lu Shu at the Blue Mountain Club, his bones were crushed by Fang Yen. He never thought that that night would be an opportunity. It was an opportunity for his master and Fang Yen to come into contact. It was unknown whether it was a hint from a sentence or a look, but the two of them actually came together and teamed up to plot against Lu Qingming, who was insufferably arrogant at the Blue Mountain Club at that time. It wasn't easy for fools to survive in this world. He's called Wang Dong. Qin Pu was destroyed, so I recommended him to work by my side. He knows that master was destroyed by you, so he always wanted to find you for revenge," Lu Shu said. "I don't have anyone I can use right now. Leave him to me." Fang Yen nodded with a smile and said, "I can see the hatred in his eyes. However, I won't kill him just because he looked at me angrily. I can't do such a thing. Of course you'd better greet him. Don't think about plotting against me. I only need to find out about this once and I'll have enough reasons to get rid of him. He's not stupid. He should know what to choose," Lu Shu said. "If he wants to die, then it's fine if we don't cherish him." Bang! Wang Dong punched Uncle Ming's chest. When Uncle Ming's lower body was unstable and he was pushed back, Wang Dong pounced on him and wrapped his arms around his neck. Crack! Uncle Ming's body softly fell to the ground and he didn't move anymore. Lu Qingming was dead and Uncle Ming was also dead. There was no evidence in this matter, so Lu Shu had enough space to act. Fang Yen stood up and said, "What a sin. My body is stained with so much killing intent. I need to go back and take a bath." The door opened and closed and Fang Yan's figure quickly disappeared. Wang Dong walked to Lu Shu's side and said unhappily, "You're letting him go just like that? So what?" Lu Shu raised his head and asked, "Keep him here? He knows too many of our secrets. I'm afraid he'll betray young master. I also want to keep him here. Lu Shu sighed softly. Even if all of your corpses were piled in front of him, he still wouldn't stay. You don't know how terrifying he is. Lu Shu put on the wolf mask on the sofa and said in a low voice, I know. Grandma was cooking in the kitchen. Grandma went to the market to buy hairy crabs and all kinds of precious seafood because her grandson and Lu Chaoga had come. Of course it was mainly because of Lu Chaoga. Lu Chaoga didn't have the image of a headmistress or a strong woman with billions of assets. She wore an apron around her neck and rolled up her sleeves to personally prepare the ingredients. Fang Yen was called to the study by Grandpa. Whenever Grandpa called Fang Yen to the study for a talk, it wouldn't be anything good. Therefore, Fang Yen was already mentally prepared. As expected, Grandpa Qin Wang scolded him as soon as he entered the room. What have you been doing recently? You're not teaching properly and you're always on leave. What kind of behavior is this? This is a serious dereliction of duty. Do you know how many days of leave you've taken this semester? Do you know how many days of classes you've had in a month? When I first introduced you to Rosefinch to teach, it wasn't for you to be lazy and slack off. A teacher should be with his students and pass on his knowledge to them. The students don't see you all day. How can they be influenced by you? How can they learn from you? If I were still the headmaster of Rosefinch, I would have fired an incompetent teacher like you long ago. And what's with the bruises on your face? You're a good school teacher and a high-level intellectual. Why do you walk around the campus with a bruised face all day? Do you know what a bad example your behavior is giving to the students? Even a teacher gets into a fight with someone. Grandpa, I accidentally bumped? Bumped? How did you end up like this? The scratches on your face were also caused by the collision? Show me one on the spot. If you can do it, I'll go against my conscience and believe your nonsense. Qin Wang was furious. He wanted to press this kid to the ground and smash his head with the inkstone on the table. A good high school teacher going out to fight and kill all day. How uncivilized is that? Fang Yen stood there awkwardly. He tried his best to squeeze out a smile and said, Grandpa, don't be angry. I just said a joke to liven up the atmosphere. The bruises on my face are from someone beating me up, but I didn't lose out. I still beat him in the end. Seeing that Qin Wang was about to explode again, Fang Yen hurriedly explained, the one who challenged me was an East Asian. He's a famous East Asian swordsman. People call him the East Asian sword god. Civil officials aren't greedy and military generals don't care about death. He can definitely win the respect of all the countries in the world. I like literature, so I became a teacher and impart my knowledge to others. I practice martial arts, so I need to defend against foreign enemies and accept challenges. Grandpa said that I lack spirit last time. I've seriously thought about this problem and I also feel that I lack spirit. A man can't stand without a soul. My words are my promise and my soul is that I will never back down. I hope I can live and there's a high chance that I will die. However, as long as I have a breath left in me, I will never let them take a step forward or win a battle. I want to smash their arrogance, I want to smash their confidence and ambition. I want to break their faces and break their teeth so that they can't be a wolf that eats meat but a dog that eats shit. This is my ideal, this is my spirit. Lu Gong was stunned on the spot. He stared at his young grandson for a long time before he finally reached out and patted him on the shoulder. He said, your words are crude but your logic is not. Chapter 289. Seeing Lu Gong take Fang Yen upstairs, her grandmother poked Lu Chaoga, who was processing the crabs, and said in a low voice, Chaoga, go upstairs and have a look. Lu Chaoga looked at her grandmother in confusion and asked, Grandma, what should I look at? Her grandmother looked worried and said angrily, the old man has been working in education all his life. He's retired for so many years, but he still can't change his bad habit of scolding people. He had always hoped that Fang Yen could be engaged in education or academic research. In the end, Fang Yen wholeheartedly went to learn Tai Chi from the Fang family. This matter had almost become a sore point for the old man. Several times when he went to bed at night, he sighed and said that a good seedling had been ruined. Yesterday, Headmaster Zhang Xiaofeng came to visit, and the old man asked about Fang Yan's work. Headmaster Zhang said that Fang Yan hadn't been in good health recently and had asked for sick leave. The old man was scared and was going to take me to see Fang Yan. But today I saw the boy's face full of injuries. What kind of illness could it be? He must have had a fight with someone again. The old man was so angry that he dragged Fang Yan upstairs to the study to teach him a lesson. The old lady glanced at the second floor and said, the old man has a habit of scolding people in the study. A few years ago he scolded Fang Yan so much that he didn't dare to step through our door. Go and have a look. Tell them to go downstairs for dinner. Even if the old man was angry, he could only hold it in when he saw you. He praised you a lot at home, saying that you were the best educator he had ever seen. In the end, he also went into business. Lu Chaoge really couldn't imagine how Fang Yan looked when he was scolded. With his sharp tongue, who could take advantage of him? However, only an unyielding elder like Lu Gong could make him respect and fear him, right? Lu Chaoge took off her apron and walked upstairs quickly. Since her grandmother was worried, she would go over to help. Before Lu Chaoge could reach the door of the study, she heard Fang Yan's impassioned voice. Who do they think they are? A sword god from a few small islands dares to come to our great country of Wuxia to challenge us? To be honest, if it weren't for the fact that he was older than me, I wouldn't have fought him at all. It would be embarrassing. If I go, it would be a waste of my talents. If I send Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan, they would be more than enough to defeat him. They have the god of swords, we have the god of despicable. It's a perfect match. But I didn't do that. What? I have to respect the old and cherish the young. It's all thanks to Grandpa's good education. Otherwise, how could he have the chance to spar with me? Lu Gong's face darkened again. He said, I saw that you said a few good words just now, but after a while you're talking nonsense. I have done some research on the Japanese. They are extremely selfish and proud, but they are also very hardworking. If the person who challenged you didn't have any ability, how could he become the sword god that they worship? He's number one in the Japanese, but in our country he's nothing, Fang Yan said stubbornly. Anyway, he didn't have any friendship with the Chiba army, so he didn't have any psychological burden to belittle him. Think about it, if he's really that powerful, why can't he beat me? Lu Gong thought about it seriously and said, whether it's learning or practicing martial arts, you can't be arrogant and complacent. I've never seen anyone who could reach the end of learning Hai Wuya. Grandpa, you're right. That's what I'm thinking, Fang Yan quickly agreed. After coming back this time, I also realized that I'm not good enough. Although I've been resting at home on sick leave for the past few days, I've never forgotten to read. I've read all the Chinese papers for the past few years. This year's final exam, Class 9 should be able to get a good result. That's because the children of Class 9 are working hard, Lu Gong said. He looked at the scars on Fang Yan's face and said with concern, work isn't in a hurry. You should rest when it's time for you to rest. Strike a balance between work and rest. I can't rest without being with the students, Fang Yan said with a sigh. Lu Xiaoge looked at this warm and affectionate scene and felt as if his heart was in a mess. Wasn't grandmother's worry too unnecessary? Lu Gong saw Lu Xiaoge standing at the door and showed a rare smile on his face. Xiaoge, what's up? Grandma asked me to invite you downstairs for dinner, Lu Xiaoge said. Lu Gong nodded and said, I'll go downstairs now. After that, he walked out of the study first. Fang Yan walked to Lu Xiaoge's side and asked with a smile, Grandma is worried that I'll be scolded by Grandpa, right? Seems like Grandma still doesn't know you well enough, Lu Xiaoge said. The more you go through, the more experience you have, Fang Yan said with a smile. Lu Xiaoge looked at Fang Yan and said, I've accepted Lan Mountain Valley's conditions. That's your problem, Fang Yan said. He rarely got involved in Chao Yan's matters, but Fang Yan was the one who initiated the cooperation with Lan Mountain Valley. With Lu Shu as a spy and Lan Mountain Valley as a pawn, if the other families wanted to take advantage of them, they would have to go through these two hurdles first. That's Chao Yan's problem, Lu Xiaoge said. Fang Yan waved his hand and said, let's go downstairs for dinner. Dinner isn't ready yet. Zhangxia Mountain, the mountain where the clouds fall. In winter, Zhangxia Mountain was a bit lonely, the mountain wind howled and the dried leaves fluttered, but it also had a different feeling to it. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were a bit excited to be back at Zhangxia Mountain. Jiang Qin pointed at a cliff and said, Mr. Fang saved us from there. If it weren't for Mr. Fang, those bad guys would definitely still be chasing us. I wonder what happened to them in the end. Bad guys naturally have to be punished, Zhang Dekai said with a smile. He was the righteous police officer who helped deal with the 3 scammers last time. This summer he brought a crew to Zhangxia Mountain to film, so he led the team to guard the place. We won't let them off just because they're of different nationalities. Jiang Qin smiled sweetly and said, Thank you, Uncle Zhang. Zhang Dekai waved his hand and said, This is what we should do. The music video director was called Song Go, a very influential figure in the film industry. He had filmed for many big names both at home and abroad. Everyone respectfully called him Brother Song. Brother Song found it hard to understand the importance Xia Xia placed on Fang Yan. If the top star in the country wanted to find a Tai Chi master to film a music video, shouldn't those Tai Chi masters rush up crying and hugging his thighs? If they could get even a little bit of a relationship with Xia Xia, wouldn't they be famous? Once they entered the scene, they wouldn't have to worry about food and clothing for the rest of their lives. Everyone knew this very well. In order to take care of this Fang Yan, Xia Xia actually brought the whole group to Huaqing to film. Didn't she know that the trip, food and accommodation for such a large group of people would require a lot of money? Brother Song's main dissatisfaction with Fang Yan was that he didn't receive enough respect. For a famous director like him, the actors he needed should have traveled all the way to meet him. How could he let him move to Huaqing? He thought that Fang Yan was more famous than him, which made him feel that they didn't treat him as a famous person in Xia Xia. The staff were setting the scene. Brother Song pulled Fang Yan aside and told him about the things he needed to pay attention to during the shooting. He said, "You have no shooting experience before and you don't know any shooting techniques. So I don't expect you to cater to my camera. Just do what you are most familiar with. The focus of this music video is on you. You just need to do Tai Chi well and show the essence of our Tai Chi culture. Do you understand? Don't be flashy, just show the essence. You have to make people feel cool, gorgeous, and beautiful at first glance." Fang Yan patiently waited for him to finish and said, "Director Song, the essence of Tai Chi is not cool and gorgeous, but the deep meaning it shows when yin and yang blend. It is in line with the way of heaven, the way of humanity, and the way of nature. From these simple movements, you can get great relief and freedom." Brother Song was angry and said angrily, "Are you the director or am I the director? Do you understand the language of the camera? Do you know what it means to present in front of the camera? As long as I point the camera at you, you have to give me the best posture and the most attractive movements. You stand there like a mummy. Who wants to look at you?" Fang Yan smiled bitterly and said, "Director Song, you still have some misunderstandings about Tai Chi Tai Chi." Song Gu waved her hand impatiently and said, "It's not that I have a misunderstanding about Tai Chi, it's that you don't understand our director and the camera at all. Okay, you don't have to say any more." Song Gu walked up to Xia Ji, who was putting on makeup, and said, "Xia Ji, I want to discuss something with you. This actor is not good. I don't think he is suitable to be the male lead of our music video. I know you love this song and I also know how important this music video is to you. In any case, we can't let this kind of idiot ruin all our efforts." Xia Ji waved his hand and signaled the makeup artist to stop for a while. He looked at Song Gu with a gentle and serious look and said with a smile, "I think he is very intelligent and has a very deep understanding of Tai Chi. Teacher Song, can't you let him try it? I think that when you really see him play Tai Chi, you will have a new understanding of him. Summer, this is your work and it is also my work. I hope there are no flaws in our work. Don't you want a Tai Chi master? Leave this matter to me. I will make a call and there will be dozens of Tai Chi masters for us to use." Song Gu said stubbornly, "We have to change this person." Xia Ji looked at Song Gu and said, "Okay. Then let's change people." Song Gu was overjoyed and said, "Xia Ji, you agree? I will tell him to get out of here and call someone. Don't think that we can only eat pigs with hair after Butcher Zhang died. Change the director." Xia Ji said to the assistant beside him. Chapter 290. The smile on Song Ji's face froze before he could retract it. Replacement? It's not the actors but the director? Song Gu was about to cry. He knew that his feeling was right. They didn't treat him as a big shot at all. They didn't respect him. If they cared a little about his feelings, they would follow his words and replace that bullsh** Tai Chi master. A big shot should have a big shot's temper. He wanted to throw out some harsh words and leave. But he suddenly remembered that there were all kinds of hidden rumors about Summer's identity in the circle. He couldn't say those harsh words no matter what. What was worse was that he couldn't flick the sleeves of his tight leather clothes. No one could stay if he wanted to, and he didn't dare to leave if he wanted to. He stood there in a dilemma, his face extremely embarrassed. What was the relationship between this gigolo and Summer? She hadn't seen Summer get close to any man for so many years. The only one who was close to her, Feng Yuanqing, seemed to be very depressed recently. Did this gigolo catch her eye? Song Gu was a little regretful. Women were irrational when they fell in love. Why should she make things difficult for her lover? Summer's assistant was Zhang Wei. Because he had a good relationship with Feng Yuanqing, he thought that Feng Yuanqing would be able to win the beauty in the end. He didn't expect to bet on the wrong treasure. Feng Yuanqing was kicked thousands of miles away by Summer. He was worried that his relationship with Summer would become estranged, so he had been trying to make up for it recently. It was not auspicious to change the director on the spot. When he heard that Summer wanted to change the director on the spot, he wanted to persuade her, but he was worried that it would make her angry. Because he had been with Summer for many years, He knew that as long as Summer decided on something, few people could change it. He hesitated, but Fang Yen tried to persuade him. It's not that serious. I think Director Song still has some misunderstandings about me and Tai Chi. If I fight on the spot for him to see, he will have a new understanding of us. If it doesn't work, it won't be too late to change the director at that time. Fang Yen spoke, and Zhang Wei quickly echoed, Mr. Fang is right. Sensei Songgu looks at Taiji from the perspective of the camera, while Sensei Fang looks at the problem from the perspective of the depth of Taiji. It's just that everyone's focus is different. We just need to find a common point, which is to be able to show the self-restraint of Taiji and also be able to look good on the camera. Isn't this what we need? Xia Xia looked at Songgu with a smile on his face and asked, Teacher Song, what do you say? Then let him try, Songgu said. He thought to himself that they still needed him. It was easy to find actors, but not so easy to find a good director. Seeing is believing. I hope he doesn't disappoint. Xia Xia looked at Fang Yen and said, You go through it first and let the two little girls remember the routine. No problem, Fang Yen said. Fang Yen walked to the edge of the cliff and stood in the form of a plum blossom stake. As for the staff behind him, who asked in a low voice why they had to walk to the edge of the cliff to play Tai Chi, no one was willing to answer such a stupid question, because no one except Fang Yen knew the answer to this question. Fang Yen took a deep breath and then gently tapped the tip of his right foot. His movement was gentle and comfortable, like an arc. Every movement of his was careful, as if he was afraid that his palm would scatter the wind and the soles of his feet would hurt the grass. However, as time went by, his movements gradually accelerated. This kind of acceleration was gradual and would not make you feel abrupt or unnatural. His body was like an arc, like an iron bow, or like a curved willow. He was like a white ape that absorbed the chi of heaven and earth, like insects, fish, flowers, and plants. He was one with everything in the world. Every time he turned around, his body seemed to fall into the abyss. This made everyone enjoy this extreme beauty with their hearts in their throats. However, their worries were superfluous, because no matter how Fang Yen drew a circle or turned around, he stood there as steady as a 1,000-year-old pine tree. Not the slightest bit off, not the slightest bit off. The setting sun was like an egg yolk, revealing a little shy face in the thick white fog. Seeing the commotion over here, a small bird with colorful feathers also flew over and peeked its head out to observe. It was still chirping, looking adorable and cheerful. Fang Yen jumped, and the bird was caught in the palm of his hand. He stretched out his arms and imitated the bird's undulating wings. He knew that as long as he used this stunt, there would be female fans at the scene fainting. The bird stood in the palm of his hand. The bird accumulated strength and Fang Yen released it. The bird lost its strength and Fang Yen used the power of Tai Chi to lift it up. The bird became nervous and its chirping became louder. However, when it found that it was not in any danger and the game was fun, it began to enjoy it. When Fang Yen released his strength, it jumped with all its might. When Fang Yen gathered his strength, it landed steadily. It even turned around and chirped at Fang Yen, telling him to hurry up, you bastard. The man and the bird were having a lot of fun. On the distant mountain ridge, a monk and a Taoist smiled as they evaluated each other. What do you think of this child? The old monk asked. Angry because of the momentum. His momentum is like a rainbow. This child actually has the momentum of indistinguishable yin and yang, the middle-aged Taoist said with an expression of admiration. The universe goes from Wuji to Tai Chi, the process of all things being born. With all things being, there is the sky above our heads and the earth below our feet. The Tao of the world uses the two energies of yin and yang to create all things. Heaven and earth, the sun and moon, thunder and lightning, wind and rain, the four seasons as well as male and female, firm and soft, movement and stillness, all things being born from yin and yang. The old monk's expression was solemn. However, everyone knows that it is precisely because all things have yin and yang, that's why Tai Chi emphasizes the fusion of yin and yang. Extreme yin gives birth to yang, extreme yang gives birth to yin. This child is amazing. At such a young age he can see mountains as mountains and water as water. Even this bird sees him as one of its kind. The heart of Tai Chi has truly become one with all things. The middle-aged Taoist nodded and said, then should we teach him the Tai Chi diagram? The old monk shook his head and said, the Tai Chi diagram is very important. Not only is it a treasure of your Taoism, but it also protects our Wuxia's dragon soul. Be careful, be cautious. Other than the foundation of martial arts, the quality of one's temperament is even more important. Looking at his appearance and behavior, this child doesn't seem to be an evil person. Furthermore, how could someone who possesses the heart of Tai Chi be bad? Let's see. Fang Yan's body rose into the air again. he personally sent the bird into the sky. Then he lightly patted the bird's head, indicating that it could leave. When Fang Yan landed, the bird actually swooped down again and stood on his shoulder, unwilling to leave. It chirped at Fang Yan's face as if it wanted to talk to him. Everyone on the scene was dumbfounded. Jiang Qin was so excited that he couldn't control himself. He grabbed Yuan Lin's hand and said, "Yuan Lin, did you see that? Did you see that? Mr. Fang is really amazing." Yuan Lin didn't feel any pain. Her eyes were shining as she stared at Fang Yan and said, "That bird is so cute." Summer was also intoxicated for a moment, but she quickly regained her sobriety. She was engaged in art, so she had no resistance to beautiful things. When Fang Yan played with the bird, it really made people's hearts tremble. It was so beautiful. That's amazing. This person's Tai Chi is so beautiful. Oh my God, I've never seen anyone play Tai Chi like that. Is this really Tai Chi? He jumped so high just now. Is there a steel wire hanging on his body? I really want to become that bird, then I can play with him. When the staff saw this incredible scene, they all became Fang Yan's diehard fans. The Tai Chi that Fang Yan presented was the Tai Chi that they had never seen before. It was the most beautiful and ideal Tai Chi in their minds. Song Gu was also stunned. Master, this was a real Tai Chi master. How could there be such a Tai Chi? How could there be such a cool Tai Chi? No, this could no longer be described as cool, but how could a cultured person be so pretentious? You clearly knew that he was pretending, but you still felt that this guy was really awesome. Song Gu kicked the leg of the cameraman next to her and shouted, "Did you take a picture? Did you take a picture just now?" The cameraman didn't have time to take off the cover of the camera lens. He said aggrievedly, "Director, didn't you say to take a look first? Look my ass. Look my ass." Song Gu kicked the cameraman's leg again and again. "Why aren't you afraid? Why aren't you afraid? What else do you want to shoot if not such a scene? I'm so angry, you idiots." Song Gu ran in front of Xiaji and said with a flushed face, "Xiaji, let's not change the person. It's him, he's a master, he can definitely give us the feeling we want. Yes, it's him. No one else can do it." "Did I pass?" Fang Yan asked with a smile. "Yes," Song Gu said. "You don't want to change the person?" Fang Yan asked again. "No." Song Gu waved her hand and said, "Well, brother Fang, I was a little biased against you just now. Don't be angry, that thing is over, let's not take it to heart, what do you think?" "I'm not a stingy man, how can I take such a small thing to heart?" Fang Yan said. "That's great. Let's start?" "Start what?" Fang Yan asked. He turned to look at Xiaji and said, "My Tai Chi has been recognized by everyone, now we can change the director." Song Gu sat on the ground, so angry that her whole body was trembling. In the forest behind the crew, the middle-aged Taoist priest said to the old monk with an embarrassed face, "Let's watch again, let's watch again." The old monk laughed. Chapter 291. You insult me once and then apologize to me. It's not fair at all. You insult me once and I'll insult you once. That's fair. Teacher Fang Huohua values fairness the most. Song Gu got up from the ground, stared at Fang Yan fiercely and said, "Do you want to play with me? Isn't your entertainment circle too dark?" Fang Yan said angrily, "You dare to make such a rude request to me in public?" Fang Yan looked at Xiaji with a strange look as if saying, "The noble circle is really messy." Xiaji looked at Song Gu and said, "Teacher Song, is there no problem in confirming the candidate?" "No problem." Song Gu dared to be ruthless to Fang Yan, but did not dare to say a harsh word to Xiaji. He and Fang Yan did not have a subordinate relationship. Fang Yan was a school teacher and it would not affect his life. He said a harsh word to Xiaji and Xiaji was only angry for a while. However, if Xiaji said a harsh word to him, he would have bad luck for the rest of his life, and he was afraid that his career would end early. "Then be more attentive," Xiaji said. "Let go of some unnecessary prejudice, and you will find that teacher Fang Yan is a very easy person to get along with." "I will." Song Gu gritted her teeth and said. She thought, is this guy really an easy person to get along with? He went around in such a big circle just to slap you in the face. How can such a narrow-minded person be called easy to get along with? Song Gu walked in front of Fang Yan, took the initiative to reach out and said, "Mr. Fang, please give me a lot of advice." "You're welcome." Fang Yan held Song Ji's hand and said, "I don't understand camera language, so I have to trouble Director Song to make me look as handsome as possible. Mr. Fang is an idol. Director Song is flattering me. Haha, I'm quite popular with students at school." Xiaji and many staff members looked at them with black lines on their faces. Everyone discussed for a while. Song Gu once again explained some shooting details, and the MV shooting officially began. The shooting this time was mainly divided into two parts. The first part was Fang Yan practicing Tai Chi alone to show the rigidity of Tai Chi. The other part was Xia Xia bringing Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, the two little beauties, to perform the softness of Tai Chi in black Tai Chi clothes. Two different scenes, maybe even two different space-time. Fang Yan's white clothes fluttered in the wind. He looked like an ancient Taiji youth. The scene of Tai Chi with Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin would constantly switch, but it was a modern Tai Chi then. Hardness and gentleness complemented each other and the four of them began to fuse. Fang Yan stood at the edge of the cliff, the dragon head. Xia Xia, Jiang Qin, and Yuan Lin followed behind him and did the same thing. Their movements were neat and the scene was beautiful. Because it was already late when the crew went up the mountain, they first shot some scenes of Fang Yan practicing Tai Chi at the edge of the cliff in the mountain breeze and white fog. Then using the same scene, Xia Xia took Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin up and also did a round of Tai Chi. Xia Xia originally had a good foundation in Tai Chi, but it didn't have any actual combat effect. It was only for strengthening the body. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were still very unfamiliar with Tai Chi. They just felt that Fang Yan was handsome and good-looking. In the past 2 days, Fang Yan gave them some simple training. They only needed to follow behind Xia Xia or Fang Yan. Simply put, the two of them were two little flower vases in the MV. Everyone only needed to think that the two of them were good-looking. In the evening, the crew members settled in the Xia Hotel, which was the only quasi-5-star hotel on Xia Mountain. Last time, Fang Yan brought his students up the mountain for the night, but he didn't bring them to stay in such a hotel. Some students had strong self-esteem, so he had to carefully protect them. After dinner, Fang Yan and Xia Xia drank tea and chatted in the Tingfeng tea house of the hotel. The Xia Hotel was built against the mountain, and the Tingfeng tea house was on the edge of the cliff. Sitting in the tea house and drinking tea, the dark Grand Canyon came into view. In autumn, the valley was full of red maple leaves which made people feel relaxed and happy. But in winter, when there were no stars or moon in the sky, only the whistling of the wind could be heard. That was how the Tingfeng tea house got its name. Fang Yan was busy making tea. The golden pu, or tea soup was very tempting. He said, "Do you want to replace Song Gu?" Xia Xia's eyes stayed on the hand that Fang Yan was using to make tea. He felt that the posture of Fang Yan making tea was very beautiful and skillful. She liked Wuxia culture and tea, but no matter how expensive the tea house was, how famous the tea made by the tea artist, she always felt that there was a lack of taste. Immortal taste. Yes, it was immortal taste. Pure heart and few desires, neither fast nor slow. No flattery, no filth. This was immortal taste. Unfortunately, few people could do it. I knew Song Gu 10 years ago and all my music videos were made by him. At that time he was just a very talented young man. Xia Xia explained softly. Later on, as his fame grew, people's nature also changed. Now he is the kind of person I don't like the most. If I don't stand up for you, he will insist on replacing you and then use his own people. Xia Xia looked at Fang Yan and said, "I can tolerate people around me making some small mistakes in the field of life, but I will never allow them to criticize my work. This is my work. He wanted to try to control you, so he used me as an experiment. In the end you slapped him back." Fang Yan said with a smile. "This slap is fierce enough." "I don't slap people," Xia Xia said. "If he still doesn't know how to restrain himself, then cut off his hands and feet. Isn't this too domineering?" Fang Yan's eyes widened. A scene appeared in his mind. Xia Xia, with disheveled hair, was holding a kitchen knife and chopping off Song Ji's hands and feet. Then he stood there and laughed, letting Song Gu lie on the ground and scream miserably. "What are you thinking?" Xia Xia said angrily. "I mean cut off his career line. I can make him call the wind and rain, and I can also make it difficult for him to move an inch." "Why does this sound like something said by a gang leader?" Xia Xia sighed softly and said, "You don't know the darkness and dirtiness of the entertainment circle." Fang Yan asked worriedly, "Will Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin be okay? If they can't resist the temptation, I can't do anything. But if someone wants to hurt them, I will cut off his hands and feet. This time I will really cut off his hands and feet." Xia Xia said coldly, "Those two little girls are quite lucky. With a big backer like you." Fang Yan said with a smile, "I'm not their backer. I'm their sister and friend. I want to take them with me to do something." Xia Xia said, "Women can also change the world. Or rather, change the world's perception of us. I've always believed that." "I also believe that," Fang Yan said. "A woman's greatest dream was to promote Wuxia culture to the world, not to watch other people's culture invade. Fang Yen felt that this kind of woman was as great as him. Fang Yen raised his teacup and said, "A toast to you." "For what?" "For our noble sentiments," Fang Yen said. Xia Xia laughed loudly and said, "Fang Yen, every time I chat with you I'm very happy. But you can't like me. There are too many people who like me," Fang Yen said. "When there are so many people I don't know how to choose. Who asked me to be a Libra? It's a bit too much, I won't go join in the fun," Xia Xia said with a hint. Fang Yen laughed dryly and didn't speak. Some things were better not said. Xia Xia looked at the antique decorations in the tea house and said, "The owner of the tea house must be a very elegant person. It's not called the Star-Gazing Tea House, it's not called the Maple Appreciation Tea House, it's called the Wind-Listening Tea House." In his heart, even listening to the wind is a romantic thing. Then star-gazing and maple appreciation are naturally not inferior. From the low place to see the rolling clouds, from the wet place to see the ninth heaven thunder. This person is very kind. Fang Yen nodded and said, "It's just that the psychology of the nouveau riche is serious. Is there a need to put so many precious wood and antiques all over the house? It's like he's afraid that others don't know he's rich." What Sir said is very true. It's us who have fallen into the cliché. A middle-aged Taoist walked over with an incense burner and a smile. He walked to the table occupied by Fang Yen and Xia Xia and stopped. He put the incense burner on the table and said, "Honored guests have come to visit. I'll give you a pot of tree incense. Please don't refuse." Fang Yen took a sniff. It was authentic ambergris. Moreover, the quality was higher than the ambergris he collected, and the smell was also purer. Fang Yen stared at the middle-aged Taoist warily and said, "Who are you? Why did you give us tree incense? You didn't poison it, did you? Meeting by chance is also fate. Does Sir not believe in fate? Do you think I'm an idiot? Giving someone tens of thousands of yuan worth of ambergris incense when you meet by chance? Why didn't you give it to the two fatso in the corner? Why didn't you give it to the couple in the 30-degree position? Why did you give it to us?" "Sir and I are fated," Fang Yen interrupted the Taoist and pointed at Xia Xia. "You're not thinking of hitting on her, are you? I'm a monk, I don't get close to women. Then you want us to buy your amulet?" Fang Yen was extremely angry. "Every time I walk on the street, I'll meet monks wearing Taoist robes who pull me to buy amulets. They say that they're fated with me at first glance. Only a fool would believe that. Tell me, how much is your amulet worth? Seeing that you gave us tree incense, we're willing to be cheated by you this time. But let me make it clear in advance, I won't pay more than 100 yuan. The middle-aged Taoist's facial muscles twitched. His body swayed and looked like he was about to fall. Chapter 292. Tianjizi felt very strange. According to his cultivation, it was impossible for him to have such a hysterical state. Was he going to suffer a heavenly tribulation? However, it was not enough to suffer a heavenly tribulation. If the white-browed monk suffered a heavenly tribulation, how could he not be punished by the heavens? That was because he was angry. Angry. The word angry had not been in Tianjizi's emotional world for many years. He had been cultivating all his life, calm and peaceful, and his thoughts were clear. He did not fight for anything and rarely had conflicts with others. There were very few things in this world that could touch his spirit mirror Tao heart. He cultivated and nourished qi, but the qi he cultivated and nourished was qi activity. It was the body's nutrition and energy, and it was the driving force for him to seek the Tao and finally break through the void. Qi could cut hair and wash marrow, strengthen the body, and make people achieve immortality. However, angry, he tried hard to think about it, but he really forgot when and why he was angry last time. Why could this young man make him so angry when he opened his mouth? After thinking about it, Tianjizi's eyes instantly lit up. Tao fate. Because they were fated, he was able to break through his own heart. Otherwise, so many people could not break through, but he could make him lose control of his emotions? Tianjizi looked at Fang Yen with even more scorching eyes, which startled Fang Yen. He said, "You are not here to flirt with her, and you are not here to sell talismans, you want to flirt with me?" The smile on Tianjizi's face instantly froze. His mouth slanted and his eyes protruded, and his body trembled even more violently. He was sure that he was going to suffer a heavenly tribulation. Otherwise, why did he feel like he was being struck by lightning? However, didn't the long-eyebrowed monk say that when he encountered the heavenly tribulation, he would experience 9 divine thunders? Why did he only experience 5? Was it because his cultivation was too low, or that monks were more unlucky than Taoists? Xiaji held back his laughter, kicked Fang Yen under the low table, looked at Tianjizi and said, What can I do for you, Jinren? Tianjizi chanted the lousy Qingyo incantation several times, and with great difficulty, he suppressed the murderous intent in his heart. He bowed to Xia with one hand and said, "This humble Taoist feels that I have fate with this little friend, so I came here to have a chat." Tianjizi looked at Fang Yan and said, "I'm not a lecherous person, nor am I someone who sells talismans for profit. I just want to have a chat with you. I don't have any evil intentions, nor do I have any malicious intent." Fang Yan looked at Tianjizi doubtfully and asked, "What do you want to talk to me about?" Tianjizi pointed to the chair next to the low table and said, "May I have a seat?" "Sit," Fang Yan said. He was a little curious about this Taoist priest. Tianjizi sat down on the side of the low table, looked at Fang Yan and asked, "Little friend, are you a martial artist?" "I know how to use Tai Chi," Fang Yan said. He looked at the Taoist priest's sitting posture and said, "From the outside you don't seem to know any martial arts at all, but when you pulled out the chair I felt a hidden movement in your chi which made me wary. This chair is made of sour pear wood and weighs dozens of kilograms. You lifted it up as if you were grabbing a handful of cotton wool. It seems that you are also an expert." Xia looked at the middle-aged Taoist priest doubtfully, thinking this is also a martial arts expert? These days there are experts everywhere. In the blink of an eye, several of them have slipped away from under your nose. The Taoist priest took the tea that Xia poured for him and said with a smile, "I can't be considered an expert. I just used decades of martial arts to train my strength." "Well said." Fang Yan sincerely praised. "In the future, if others say that I'm an expert, can you lend me that sentence?" Tianjizi laughed and said, "You can take it. But I think that what you said just now, know how to use Tai Chi, is more effective. Experts who have the heart of Tai Chi, the number of Wuxias and Nuada can be counted on one's fingers. If this is only 2 hands of Tai Chi, what about the other practitioners?" Fang Yan's eyes became sharp and said, "You know me? I was lucky to be at the scene of the Battle of One Sword Peak." Tianjizi looked into Fang Yan's eyes and said. Fang Yan was shocked and said, "I didn't feel your existence." Not only Fang Yan didn't feel it, but the Ministry of War also didn't feel it. Because at that time, the Ministry of War said that there were only 3 people present who could fight with him. After this battle, he must visit them one by one. Fang Yan learned from Lei Feng's good example and helped him point out who the 3 experts were, but this middle-aged Taoist priest was not included. Many people thought that only those who were good at fighting were real warriors. Of course, this was not wrong. However, being good at hiding was also a unique skill. The enemy was already at your door, but you still didn't know he was there. Just thinking about it made people's scalps tingle and their backs turn cold. "My little friend, don't panic," Tianjizi said, waving his hand. "When I hide in the wind, I become the wind. When I hide in the forest, I become a tree, a flower, and a grass. When the wind comes, I move, and when insects come, I don't panic. They and I are one. My little friend, your heart of Tai Chi has reached a higher level, and even the birds are willing to play with you. Isn't it the same? There are 3,000 ways in the world, but in the end, they all lead to the same destination. There is no difference between you and me." Fang Yan's hostility toward this Taoist priest deepened. This old guy followed him to the One Sword Peak to watch the battle between him and the Ministry of War, and he also saw the scene of him playing with the birds today. Was he a stalker? Fang Yan looked at the Taoist priest and asked, "How should I address you?" "My Taoist name is Tianjizi," the middle-aged Taoist priest said. "Tianjizi, why do you always follow me? I was fighting with the Japanese sword god and you followed me. I caught a bird to play with and you also peeped behind my butt. What do you want? Now that you have come to me, you must be ready to lay your cards on the table, right?" "My little friend, you are very vigilant." "Nonsense. 9 out of 10 Taoist priests these days are liars and one is a bastard. He always grabs your hand and says that you will suffer a bloody disaster. There were several times when I wanted to make him suffer a bloody disaster. He sells talismans and I only lose some money. You don't even sell talismans, which means that what you are after is bigger. Who knows what I will lose? Some things are not things to give, but things to gain. If you give, but if you don't give, how can you gain?" Tianjizi said. "My little friend, can you tell me why you learn martial arts?" "So that others can't bully me," Fang Yan said. After thinking for a while, he added, "When I want to bully others, I don't worry that they will hit me." "If that's the case, then why did you risk your life to accept the challenge from Chiba?" Tianjizi asked with a smile. "From what I saw and thought, you didn't have any confidence that you could win against that Japanese swordsman, right? You didn't give even an inch because you were proud and hot-blooded. Am I right?" He took the initiative to challenge me and bullied me. How could I cower and run away? The worst outcome would be death. If I died, thousands of Fang Yans would stand up and kill him. No matter what, I wouldn't suffer too much, Fang Yan said. Death is good. In order to uphold the dignity of a martial artist and protect the orthodox martial arts of Wuxia, you were willing to fight to the death with the Japanese sword god even though you knew that you were not as strong as him. Just this alone makes you stand out among your peers. Actually, I thought of asking for help, but they didn't come. You are frank and direct, and you have the courage to admit to others that you are timid and cowardly. It's human nature to look for a solution when you encounter difficulties, but in the end, you relied on your own courage and ability to defeat your opponent. I am not timid and cowardly for a moment. I have always been timid and cowardly. Not only do I have that kind of thought, but I also put it into action. If I invited someone over, it would be him fighting the Japanese sword god, and I would be eating melon seeds and chatting on the side. You are a chivalrous person. Why did you purposely make yourself look so bad? Tianjizi looked at Fang Yan and asked, worried that people will criticize you and make fun of you? Fang Yan sighed softly and said, you are so shameless to praise me. Tell me, what do you want? Tianjizi's expression was solemn and his eyes were clear. His body was like a sleeping tiger or a coiled dragon, emitting a calm and peaceful aura. Ambergris smoke lingered in the air, and the faint fragrance was refreshing, making one's body completely relax and mind travel to the heavenly realm. This guy is good at showing off, Fang Yan thought. Tianjizi looked at Fang Yan and said in a compassionate tone, the wind is strong, the tide is surging. The flood dragon totem, the fire phoenix nirvana. The dragon soul of Wuxia, the glory is inextinguishable. The spirit of martial arts, the sun and the moon shine together. Thieves and evildoers covet from all directions. We should rise up and fight against them, using our hearts to punish them. The ancients said, establish a heart for the heaven and earth, establish a life for the people, inherit the lost knowledge for the saints, and establish peace for the world. The revival of China and the protection of the dragon soul, we have no other responsibility. Fang Yan was stunned by these majestic words and said, what should I do? Do you know the Tai Chi diagram? Tai Chi diagram? Yes. Fang Yan nodded. It is said that it was passed down by the Song dynasty Taoist Qin Tuan, and its original name is the Wuji diagram. According to historical records, Qin Tuan once passed down the pre-celestial diagram, Tai Chi diagram, river diagram, and Luo Shu to his student Zhong Fang, who in turn passed them down to Mu Xiu, Li Zhe, and others. Later, Mu Xiu passed down the Tai Chi diagram to Zhou Dunyi. The Tai Chi diagram we see now was passed down by Zhou Dunyi. I have one hanging on the wall in my room. I look at it several times a day. What's wrong? Tianjizi smiled soundlessly and said, the painting of Tai Chi I am talking about is not the kind that can be bought on the street, but the real treasure of Taoism, the painting of Tai Chi, one of the 4 great books of Wuxia, along with the painting of the river, the book of Luo, and the innate painting. Fang Yan stared at Tianjizi with his eyes wide open and asked, why are you telling me this? I want to choose a fated person to pass down the Tai Chi diagram to, and let him protect our dragon soul of Wuxia. Then go find him. Fang Yan said. Why are you telling me this? Chapter 293. As an innocent bystander, Xia was worried that Tianjizi might slap Fang Yan to death at any time. Xia thought, if I were this Taoist priest, I would also slap Fang Yan to death. This is too much. Sure enough, Tianjizi raised his wrist. His palm kept shaking, but the tea in the cup didn't spill at all. Not only that, but the steam coming out of the cup suddenly disappeared. It was a strange scene. The steam was boiling a second ago, but in an instant, the smoke disappeared, the steam dispersed, and the hot water turned into cold water. Tianjizi slammed the cup on the table. The tea didn't break, but the sour pearwood table started to shake. Xia was shocked and couldn't help leaning back. She was worried that Tianjizi would not be able to hold back his anger and pour the tea in the cup onto Fang Yan's face. In the end, she would be in trouble because the tea was so hot. She did not want to be disfigured. On second thought, she realized that masters should not pour tea on each other, pull each other's hair, and kick each other's balls. The tea was not cold, but frozen. Xia touched it with her finger. It was real ice. Ovo. Xia's eyes, which always gave people a sense of intellectual elegance, suddenly became like this. She couldn't accept and believe such a change. Was this magic? The golden pu'er tea had turned into golden ice cubes, sparkling and translucent under the illumination of the light. It looked very cute. Fang Yan was also shocked. He knew this Taoist priest was a master, But he didn't expect him to be a master of a master. Just by using the move, turning water into ice, it was already amazing. His internal strength cultivation could leave him several streets behind. Tianjizi closed his eyes and muttered something. His lips moved faster and faster, and then he suddenly let out a muffled roar. The shout was not loud, but it was extremely harsh. Xiaxia's face was pale, and Fang Yan's ears felt as if they were being pricked by needles. It was very uncomfortable. Not only did Xia Chen and Fang Yan suffer, but the other guests of the Tingfeng tea house were also not spared. When they heard this shout, the faces of those who were discussing turned ugly, the eyes of those who were looking at each other were filled with fear, and the smiles on the faces of those who were chatting and laughing became stiff and ferocious, as if they were discussing how to chop someone up. They all felt as if they had been hit by something, but no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't find the weapon that had hurt them. They all thought it was a panic attack and were focused on doing their own things. However, they were startled by the sudden sound. Therefore they all pointed at the middle-aged Taoist priest and cursed him. "Why are you shouting in the middle of the night? Don't you have any manners?" This was a more elegant way of scolding. "Old man, you must be tired of living. Do you believe that I won't slap you to death?" This was a more courageous way of cursing. To be honest, Fang Yan was quite looking forward to him coming over to slap the old guy. "Which dog is barking in public? Hurry up and bring it back. Don't run around." This was a curse that brought about one's own destruction. Fang Yan couldn't bear to look in the direction of where he was. Tianjizi paid no attention to the attacks and insults outside. He slowly opened his eyes, and his expression became bright and clear again. He had the demeanor of an expert. He looked at Fang Yan and said, "Buddhism pays attention to the fruit of suffering, and Taoism pays attention to fate. My young friend Fang Yan, you and I are fated. Otherwise, how could you repeatedly break my Taoist heart with just a few words? Although this curse came from my mouth, it started because of you, so, this resentment should also be placed on you." Xiaji helplessly looked at Tianjizi and said, "Spiritual master, Fang Yan also often breaks my peace." Xiaji had the most right to speak about this kind of thing. When she and Fang Yan met for the first time, all kinds of unpleasant things happened. Fang Yan had a kind heart, but he had a venomous tongue. Feng Yuanqing almost died of anger when he met him. "That's also because you are fated." Tianjizi pretended to be profound and said with the face of a charlatan, "If you are not fated, the world is so big and there are so many people. How can only the two of you sit in this Tingfeng tea house and drink tea and listen to the wind?" Xiaji's mouth slightly opened. She felt that what he said was so reasonable that she was actually speechless. Tianjizi's focus was on Fang Yan, so he once again put his gentle and kind eyes on Fang Yan's face and said in a clear voice, "If we are fated, we should cherish the fate. I and my young friend Fang Yan hit it off the moment we met, and I see that you have the heart of Tai Chi, but you are not arrogant and rash. You have a noble character and wisdom like the sea. Therefore, I think my young friend Fang Yan is the most suitable inheritor of the Tai Chi diagram." Fang Yan stared at Tianjizi and said, "You want to give the Tai Chi diagram to me?" "Not give, it's pass." Tianjizi corrected his words. "That was a treasure. Could it be given away? It could only be passed on. Look at what the ancients said. Carry on the sacred arts of the past. They used the word, inherit. For free? For free. You just said that it is the treasure of your Taoism? Indeed. You also said that there is a dragon soul in it? To protect Wuxia's dragon soul. Are you crazy?" Fang Yan asked with a look of disbelief. "Why don't you hide such a good thing for yourself and give it to an outsider like me? It's good to pass it on to your son and grandson." "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know if you have been married and had children. It's also good to sell it. If it is really as mysterious as you said, it can definitely be sold for a good price." Tianjizi felt something flowing out of the corner of his mouth. He was too embarrassed to wipe it with his sleeve. He felt that it was too embarrassing. Was this the fated person he had chosen? What kind of F***king monster was this? Could such a person really inherit the Taoist culture and protect Wuxia's dragon soul from being extinguished? Tianjizi reached out and grabbed the teacup that he had just slammed on the table. The coldness of his palm calmed the anger in his heart a little. He looked at Fang Yan with a serious face and said in a selfless manner, "That is the treasure of Wuxia. It is shared by everyone in Wuxia. How can I keep it for my own selfish reasons? Also, the Tai Chi painting can't be sold. We can't sell our totem and spirit." Fang Yan's face darkened. He said, "You mean that the Tai Chi painting can't be sold or passed on to my son and grandson?" "That's right," Tianjizi said firmly. This kind of thing was not negotiable. What can I do with it? Inherit the Taoist culture and protect Wuxia's dragon soul. If you have a great opportunity, you might be able to decipher the 9 syllables mantra in the Tai Chi painting. I think it will definitely benefit you for the rest of your life. If you give me something, I can't sell it. I can't pass it on to my son or my girlfriend. The only thing I can do with it is to play a word-solving game. In the end, when I'm about to die, I still have to pass it on to someone else. Wait for a new fated person to appear. The Tai Chi painting will naturally have a new inheritance. Tianjizi said. Am I crazy? Fang Yen was so angry that his body was trembling. He pointed at Tianjizi's nose and scolded, "What good does this do me? I don't get anything. If you give it to me, I have to give it to someone else. What if I have feelings for it? What if I can't bear to give it to someone else? If that's the case, I might as well not have it in the first place." That's the Tai Chi painting, one of the 4 great books of Wuxia. It's everyone's dream. Tianjizi wanted to try harder. Whoever wants it can take it. Fang Yen said angrily. I've heard a lot of stories like this. A monk or a Taoist priest pretending to be mysterious. Or a wretched-looking old man. They pulled a young man passing by and said, "Young man, I see that you have a clear bone structure, an imposing appearance and a root of wisdom. You are a rare martial arts genius. If you concentrate on cultivation, you will become a great person in the future. Come here. I have a book called 18 Dragons Subduing Palms. Whoever believes it is an idiot." Immortal, are you okay? Xiaji asked carefully. She felt that the Taoist priest had suffered a great blow tonight. She didn't know if he could bear it. The timing is not right. The timing is not right. Tianjizi said with infinite regret. The old monk is right. Let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. Tianjizi stood up. When he turned around, he reached out and flicked his sleeves. The tea that had been frozen into ice melted again. Hot steam rolled over. Fang Yan's eyes widened. His mind trembled. He stared at the cup of tea without blinking. He stared at the rolling steam above the cup. He reached out his hand and touched it. The steam really did have heat. It was not a cheap trick on the street. The dead tree has come back to life. Fang Yan exclaimed. The dead tree has come back to life. He pushed the chair away and stood up, but the middle-aged Taoist priest was nowhere to be seen. He grabbed Xiaji's shoulder and asked, "Did you see him? Did you see where he went?" No. Xiaji shook her head. She didn't understand why Fang Yan was so excited all of a sudden. She didn't see him like this even when the boiling hot water turned to ice. I'm looking at the tea in the cup. Fang Yan went to ask several people, including the waiters of the Tingfeng tea house. However, no one told him where Tianjizi had gone. Fang Yan stood in the Tingfeng tea house and cursed, "Do you have any patience, old man? Do you have any integrity? You said that you will pass the Tai Chi diagram to me. Hurry up and give it to me. Don't you want to take me as your disciple? How can it be so easy to take a disciple? Other people's masters are crying and shouting, hugging their disciples' thighs and begging. If one day doesn't work, they will come 100 times. If one day doesn't work, they will come 100 days. Can't you at least hold on? When I don't agree, don't you know how to slap me?" Fang Yan cried aggrievedly and shouted with red eyes, "Godfather, where are you?" Chapter 294. The smoke curled up and the wooden fish struck. Divine Jizi angrily pushed open the door, his face as dark as the bottom of a pot. The old monk stopped striking the wooden fish and looked at his old friend. "I told you to wait and see, but you just had to be so impatient. Did you get frustrated?" "He's a bastard," Divine Jizi said with a bitter smile. "I can't even talk to him normally. Which one of his words is serious?" "He's not a bastard. If he really was a bastard, why would we follow him for so long?" The old monk shook his head. "He's a smart person, too smart. He just used this bastard method to reject our request. Think about it, based on our many days of observation and understanding, has he really done something that we find unsightly? You mean he knows why we came, but he just doesn't want to be on the same path as us? He doesn't want to take on this responsibility," the old monk sighed. "He's still young, still in the playful stage, who would want to carry such a burden? Passing on the culture, protecting the dragon soul, these words sound easy to say, but it's hard to do." "Someone has to do it," Divine Jizi said regretfully. "There are still a few outstanding people in our generation. These youngsters, there has to be a few people who stand out." "Didn't he already stand up?" the monk said with a smile. "He teaches and educates people, traditional Wuxia culture. Facing the challenge of the Japanese sword god Chiba, he didn't back down. Didn't he already stand up? What's missing is just a ceremony. We just need to be patient and give them more time. I think these kids won't let us down. Who knows, they might even do better than us in the future. Wu Jizi nodded and said, is he really the fated one? What? The divine fortune teller, divine Jizi is starting to doubt his own eyes? This kid is a bit strange. Just sitting with him makes me easily angry, violent. Even the Lao Tzu cleansing mantra can't suppress it. Because you care, the monk said. If you don't care, why are you so angry? In your hands, he is the most suitable inheritor of the Tai Chi painting, right? You think too highly of him, so you're more concerned about gains and losses. I almost wanted to squeeze his neck and force him to accept this task. Tian Jizi laughed heartily. However, it's impossible for this kid to escape from my grasp. You planted another seed? I just used our Taoist secret technique, spring comes to withered wood, in front of him. He stood outside the wall but couldn't enter. I think he would be interested in this. Amit Ba, you two continue to fight. Who knows, we might end up as a family, the monk said with a smile as he struck the wooden fish again. Talk. Fang Yen was very frustrated. He locked himself in his room, boiled a pot of water, and poured it into a teacup. He held the teacup full of water in his hand and used the suction technique of Tai Chi to suck away the steam inside the teacup. The boiling water that had just been boiled immediately became cold water. He once again infused Qi into the teacup. The cold water slowly froze, then became a snow-white ice cube. He flicked his sleeves at the teacup. A scorching force blew through the mouth of the teacup, and the ice cube instantly melted into water. It was a simple cup of cold water. Fang Yen painfully banged his head against the wall. What's missing? What's missing? Fang Yen couldn't understand. Why did the same cup of ice melt with a flick of his sleeves and turn into hot tea? Why couldn't I do it? Why did I only get a cup of cold water when I melted the ice? This was the obstacle of consciousness. It was also called the critical point. From point A to point B was only separated by a thin wall. As long as one opened a door, they could jump from point A to point B. But where was that door? Don't underestimate this thin wall. Many times, it could trap a genius in the same place for the rest of his life. Fang Yen was walking on a road that no one had ever walked before. Or rather, someone had walked on this road but he didn't know who, so he had no experience to learn from. He asked the old drunkard, and the old drunkard told him to explore it by himself. The road ahead was long, and he was also in the stage of exploration. Fang Yen could feel that he was the same kind of person as the old drunkard, and also the same kind of person as Yiro. However, Tian Jizi obviously stood at a higher level, a higher position. He could give him guidance. Fang Yen really wanted to grab him and ask him, what's going on with me now? Why did the state of Tai Chi become completely incomprehensible and unfamiliar to me? What's its final form? What's my goal? What should I work toward? Zhang Chen wanted to practice Qi by force, so he had his own confusion. Fang Yen also had Fang Yan's troubles. Fang Yen could answer Zhang Chen's questions, but few people could answer Fang Yan's questions. There were too many unanswered questions in his heart, and every answer was incomparably important to him. If Tianjizi could help him solve the problem, not to mention calling him master, he could even call him godfather. Other people could call him godfather for a bit of money, so what was wrong with him calling him godfather for the sake of his supreme pursuit of martial arts? Fang Yen really didn't mind. Bang, 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 he knocked his head on the wall again and again. He really wanted to know, what did he do wrong? What did he lack? Bang, 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 the sound of his head hitting the wall came again. Fang Yen looked at his head in confusion. It hadn't hit the wall, someone was knocking on the door. Fang Yen walked over and opened the door. Jiang Qin was standing at the door in a nightdress with a smile. Fang Yen looked at Jiang Qin and asked, why aren't you sleeping? I can't sleep. So I came to chat with Mr. Fang, Jiang Qin said shyly. It was a little embarrassing to stand in front of his teacher in the middle of the night. I'm already asleep, Fang Yen said. Let's talk tomorrow. Hurry up and rest. We have to get up in a few hours to film. The next scene will be the scene of the sun rising. You have to rest well and show your most beautiful posture to the audience. Jiang Qin looked a little wronged, but he tried to smile and said, okay. Good night, Mr. Fang. Good night, Fang Yen said with a smile. Jiang Qin turned around and left. He entered his room and closed the door. The door of the room next door opened. He stood at the door with a cardigan sweater over his pajamas. She's sad, Xia said. I'm also doing this for her own good, Fang Yen said. One day she'll understand your painstaking efforts, Xia said. She'll be glad to have a teacher like you. It's late. Go to sleep, Fang Yan said. He waved at Xiaji, then turned around and entered his room. Xiaji stood at the door and looked at the closed door of Fang Yan's room in a daze. This man, what kind of man is he? Because the entire crew lived on this floor, he refused to let students enter his room. He was worried that some people would see it and bring trouble to Jiang Qin. The entertainment circle was a circle of right and wrong. A small joke like Jiang Qin knocking on the door of a male teacher's room in the middle of the night might seem inconspicuous now, but when she really became famous, those hidden monsters would jump out and bring her a lot of trouble. Fortunately, he was very sober. When Xiaji saw Fang Yan for the first time, it was the scene of Fang Yan standing under the rising red sun and playing Tai Chi. Therefore, she stubbornly believed that it was the most beautiful scene and that such a scene must be included in her MV. Thus, the whole crew got up early the next day to shoot the sunrise. The two little girls, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, were in very good spirits. They took the initiative to help distribute lunch boxes to the staff of the crew. Fang Yan paid special attention to Jiang Qin and was relieved when he found that there was no abnormality. After all, she was just a child. Her mood was bad and good faster. After a night's rest, she probably couldn't remember what happened yesterday. Seeing that Xiaji was looking at them, the two looked at each other and smiled. The shooting plan was temporarily modified. They still shot the scene of the rising red sun, but the shooting location was not in the slightly flat sky, but in the Tiger Leaping Gorge. Song Gu thought that the terrain there was higher and the location was steeper. If it was filmed there, it would give people a more beautiful and three-dimensional feeling. More importantly, he was going to let Fang Yan do Tai Chi on the left side of the Tiger Leaping Gorge, and let Xiaji take Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin to the right side of the Tiger Leaping Gorge to do Tai Chi left and right, hard and soft. They did it at the same time with several cameras working at the same time. When the time comes, the edited MV must be beautiful. This was Song Ji's original words. Xiaji was a workaholic. After listening to Song Ji's explanation, he also felt that this idea was very good. Thus, the group rushed to the Tiger Leaping Gorge. The Tiger Leaping Gorge was the place where Fang Yan encountered the monster killer group last time. There were two tall cliffs on the left and right side. It was said that on the night of the full moon, a fierce tiger howled at the moon and then jumped from the cliff on the left to the cliff on the right. The monster group's grave was covered with weeds, but the Tiger Leaping Gorge was still gloomy and ghostly, giving people infinite temptation and pushing people away. Song Gu liked this place very much and said happily, "It's so beautiful. So beautiful. That's the feeling I want. Dark and lonely, like an old man in his twilight years. But when the first ray of sunlight shines on the Tiger Leaping Gorge, it gives people a feeling of light and hope. It must be unbelievably beautiful." Xiaji was also very satisfied with this place and was full of expectations for the later filming. Because Fang Yan was the main character in the MV, he needed to play Tai Chi on the cliff facing the east. On the other hand, Xiaji, Jiang Qin, and Yuan Lin needed to go down to the mountainside and take the ropeway to the other side of the Tiger Leaping Gorge. Of course, Song Gu also followed Xiaji to the other side. On Fang Yan's side, there was only an assistant director accompanying him. The assistant director asked Fang Yan to tie the rope, but Fang Yan waved his hand to indicate that there was no need. This level of danger was within his tolerance range. On the opposite side of the cliff, Xiaji, Jiang Qin, and Yuan Lin were being tied up with safety ropes by the staff. At this moment, Xia suddenly cried out in alarm and fell forward. There was a slope in front of her. Her body slid down the slope for a while and fell down the cliff. At this time, Xiaji's seatbelt was not yet locked. Chapter 295. In the blink of an eye, Summer, who was standing beside him, had fallen off the cliff. It happened too fast. It was so fast that it was hard for people to react. Song Gu and the others didn't even have time to make a frightened movement or make any sound. They just shouted something. The summer disappeared from their eyes. Of course, this was just the reaction of a normal person. Fang Yan was not a normal person. When he heard Summer's exclamation, he already felt that the situation was not good. When he saw Summer's head sliding down the slope, he already had a premonition of what was going to happen. Therefore, when Summer fell off the cliff, Fang Yan had already finished 2 consecutive run-up runs. He tiptoed on the edge of the cliff and his body quickly fell to the cliff, rushing towards Summer, who was on the opposite side of the cliff. Whoosh, the wind was whistling in Summer's ears. She felt the cold wind of the canyon cutting her face. She felt her body was cold and stiff. Her mind was blank. She could only hear her own breathing and heartbeat. "I'm going to die." She was really unwilling. Summer's heart was full of regret and regret. She was so young, she still had a lot of things to experience. She hadn't been in love, she hadn't fulfilled her music dream, she still had a lot of things to eat and a lot of places to go. Strange, it wasn't her own heartbeat. Her heartbeat wasn't so hard, and her chest wasn't so wide. Summer opened her eyes and looked at Fang Yan's eyes. 1 second or maybe even shorter. Fang Yan had already looked away, but she felt an unprecedented sense of security. This sense of security made her body no longer cold, the flesh on her face no longer hurt, and her mind returned to normal. Damn. Summer thought angrily in her heart. She was jumping off the cliff like Fang Yan. Why could she still feel safe? What was safe? Would it be safer to die together? Summer and Fang Yan had known each other for a while, but it was the first time she was so close to him. She looked at his side profile. It wasn't the kind of handsome European with a knife and axe. The curve was very soft. His eyes were very bright. They were falling fast and his eyes were looking around like an eagle. He was about to die, so what was there to worry about? Xia suddenly felt her side collide with the edge of the cliff. No, Fang Yan hugged her and dove to the side. Fang Yan grabbed onto a long horizontal branch at the edge of the cliff. Because they were falling too hard, the tree branch creaked under their weight, and their legs kept swaying in the air. From rolling down the cliff to stopping, the summer felt as long as a century. However, to Fang Yan, it was merely a breath's time. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Fang Yan jumped off the cliff to intercept Xia Kiki. After gliding in the air for a few tenths of a second, Fang Yan hooked his hand and grabbed the tree trunk. Are you okay? Fang Yan finally had the chance to ask this question. I'm fine, Fang Yan. You? She really couldn't understand why Fang Yan would jump off the cliff to save her. Didn't he say that she wasn't his type and that they wouldn't have a future together? Was there a need to invest so much? Fang Yan didn't answer her question. He looked up at the sky and shouted, "Throw the rope down. Quick, put the rope down, put the rope down." Song Gu and the security assistants on the top of the mountain finally reacted. They put down the rope that was originally used as a safety rope and held the other end in their hands. 1 person, 2 people, 3 people, a dozen people, they lined up in a column, each holding a section of the rope, ready to pull Fang Yan and Xia Ji up. Fang Yan told Xia Chen to hug him tightly. For safety's sake, he used his own legs to clamp Xia Chen's legs tightly together. This posture was really too embarrassing and too ambiguous. Fortunately, Fang Yan and Xia Chen were both simple-minded beauty. No one would think so much and no one would admit that they did. In this way, Fang Yan's 2 hands were completely free. He hugged the tree trunk with one hand and took the rope with the other hand and pulled hard. The group of people on the mountain moved toward the edge of the cliff. The rope was very soft and there were many factors that could not be fixed. Tie the other end of the rope to a big tree. Tie it tightly. Fang Yan shouted. This time it was not a joke. If the rope accidentally fell when he grabbed the rope and climbed up, it would be very difficult for him to grab the life-saving object that could stop them from falling. Or if someone on the top of the mountain was pulled down the cliff, Fang Yan would be powerless to help save them at that time. With casualties, this MV shooting would become an accident. The police and the media would get involved, the aftermath would be very troublesome and the impact would be very bad. This was the first time Fang Yan had experienced MV. He did not want to encounter such a bad thing at the beginning of his life. Quickly tie the rope to the tree. Song Gu became a headless fly and anxiously ordered. If something happened to Xia Chen, the Xia family might vent their anger on him. After all, he was the one who requested to come to Tiger Leaping Gorge to shoot the MV, and he was the one who came up with the idea. This kind of responsibility was not something he could bear. Xia Chen's security assistant was still rational and said, "Director Song, if we tie the rope to the tree we can't drag it. How can they come up?" Song Gu thought about it and also felt that something was wrong. Shouldn't Fang Yan tie the other end of the rope to him and Xia Chen, and the people on the top of the mountain should try their best to drag them up? They tied the rope to the tree trunk, and the tree would not help to drag them. Could it be that the 2 of them tied the rope and climbed up by themselves? How could they climb up? Is it tied? Fang Yan pulled the rope again and shouted. "Mr. Fang, should we drag you up? Tie the rope to the tree? You don't have to worry about anything else." Fang Yan shouted. Creak, creak. The trunk of the small tree that Fang Yan was hugging was bent to the extreme. This small tree, which was as thick as the mouth of a bowl, was not enough to support the strength of 2 people. Soil began to roll down from its roots. "Fang Yan, the tree is going to break," Xia Chen said with a pale face. "It's okay. We have enough time," Fang Yan said. As he spoke, he had already grabbed the rope and did not let go. Even if the small tree broke immediately, they would not fall off the cliff. It's tied. Song Gu shouted from the top of the mountain. Fang Yin was worried and pulled hard. The rope was straight and hard, and the other end was tied very firmly. As long as the tree was strong enough, there should be no problem with the rope. All of you get out of the way. Fang Yin shouted. Song Gu looked around and asked, "You said to get out of the way. Where should we go?" No one answered because everyone saw a horrifying and thrilling scene. They saw Fang Yin hugging Xia Chen with one hand and holding the rope with the other. After wrapping the rope around his wrists a few times, he swung his body towards the cliff on the right. They were like two gourds on a vine, crashing into the stone wall on the other side. Both of his feet stepped on the cliff, and his body once again rushed towards the cliff on the left. Both of his feet stepped on the cliff on the left, and his body once again swung to the right. Back and forth, Fang Yin was like a naughty monkey playing on the two blades cliff. After borrowing strength several times, his body suddenly jumped high and jumped on top of Song Ji's head with Xia Chen in his arms. The hero saving the beauty had to be cool. This was the second cool climbing posture that Fang Yin could think of. When Song Gu was still hesitating about where to hide, the security assistant pushed him away, which avoided the tragic fate of being kicked to the bottom of the cliff by Fang Yin and Xia Chen. In that case, Song Gu would only have a dead end. Because the security assistant knew that Fang Yin would not play eagle fall for Song Gu. The security assistant really knew about safety. Xia Chen lay in Fang Yan's arms and gasped. Until now, she did not dare to open her eyes. It was too exciting, it was really too exciting. She had made many movies and TV series, climbed mountains, jumped over rivers, and even played high-altitude leaps on the skyscrapers of Dubai. However, that was when there was a steel wire hanging from it. Moreover, most of the actions in the film and TV series were completed by post-production. The scene that you think is cool and exciting may just be completed in the recording studio. However, Fang Yin made such an action with one hand grabbing the rope. This is simply challenging human cognition. Song Gu sat on the ground and looked at Fang Yin with her mouth wide open. She was speechless for a long time. He didn't know if he was stimulated or scared. Maybe it was both. The three security assistants of the crew stared at Fang Yin. A bearded man gave a thumbs up to Fang Yin. The bearded man was called Zhou Deqiang, the head bodyguard of Xia Chen. Originally he did not like Fang Yin very much. He thought that he was just a pretty boy who knew a few tricks. Because he was good-looking and glib, he was able to get Miss Xia Chen's trust. This feeling was as complicated and contradictory as the princess guarded by the warrior was taken away by the prince, and the daughter raised by the father was about to be cheated away by the bastard son-in-law. However, with Fang Yan's quick reaction after Xia Chen fell off the cliff and his ability to climb at high altitude, his ability could kill them dozens of times. He came over and wanted to pat Fang Yan's shoulder, but he felt that this action was a bit disrespectful to an expert. So he took his hand back. He looked at Fang Yan and said, "Master Fang, thank you. Our brother's negligence caused Miss Xia Chen to be in danger. If it weren't for you, the consequences would be unimaginable." The other two security assistants also came over to thank Fang Yan. They were smiling on their faces, but they were crying in their hearts. With this guy here, they were afraid that they would lose their jobs, right? Chapter 296. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were frightened. They stood together with Summer and were about to buckle the rope around their waists when Summer exclaimed and disappeared. The two little girls were deeply loved by Summer. When they were in Yanjing, they received a lot of help from Summer. Summer was usually busy with work, but she often asked her assistant to send them some daily necessities. As long as she had free time, she would drive to school to pick them up, and the three of them would go out to eat and go shopping together. Their relationship was not like that of master and apprentice, but more like that of sisters. Summer fell off the cliff. Their little faces were pale with fear and their legs were weak. They couldn't even speak. Fortunately, Fang Yin chased after them and saved Summer. Only then did they recover some spirit and strength. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin rushed over and cried while hugging Summer. Life and death separated by a thin line. If it weren't for Fang Yin, they could only see Summer's corpse now. Maybe they wouldn't see it because they couldn't go down the mountain in such a short time. Because Summer was still lying in Fang Yan's arms, the two of them also hugged Fang Yin. From a distance, it looked like the four of them were hugging their heads and crying together. Summer finally came to her senses. She got up from Fang Yan's arms, turned around and hugged Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin in her arms. She comforted them and said, "Why are you crying? I'm fine, aren't I?" "Sister, you almost..." Yuan Lin wiped her tears and her little face was red from crying. "I thought I wouldn't see you." "Yes." As soon as we looked up, we couldn't see you. Then we saw them running to the edge of the cliff. Yuan Lin and I didn't dare to go over. We were so scared. Jiang Qin's eyes were also red. With your omnipotent Mr. Fang here, sister will be fine. Summer said with a smile. She adjusted her mentality very quickly. Look, aren't I standing right in front of you? Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin looked at Fang Yan together. When they were about to thank Fang Yan, they found that Fang Yan was chatting with the security assistant. Fang Yan looked at the bearded Zhou Deqiang and asked, Brother Zhou is a soldier? Zhou Deqiang and his two brothers immediately became vigilant. They stared at Fang Yan and said, Master Fang, why do you ask? He has been retired for at least 10 years, right? Fang Yan said with a smile. Although you've been away from the army for many years, your every movement still bears the mark of a soldier. For example, the way you stand, the tone of your voice, and some of the methods you use when you're on guard. You don't have to be nervous. I knew you were soldiers the moment I saw you. Master Fang has a good eye. Zhou Deqiang chuckled. Protect Miss Summer well. She's a good person and deserves your attention. Fang Yan said. Zhou Deqiang looked at Fang Yan and said, Master Fang, have you ever considered following Miss Xia? Miss Xia is a good person and treats you differently. If you guard her, you'll have a better development in the future. Zhou Deqiang was also a smart person. He knew that the pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. If Fang Yan was willing to be Xia Xia's bodyguard, perhaps the two of them would become an enviable couple. Miss Xia Xia had a good family background, good looks, and most importantly, she was kind-hearted, knowledgeable, and introverted. She was a good match for countless men. If Fang Yan could really get together with Xia Xia, it would be 100 times better than being a teacher in a middle school. Xia Xia's husband was a figure who could make headlines in the media from time to time. Zhou Deqiang thanked Fang Yan for his help in times of crisis and also thanked him for comforting his brother, so this sentence was more straightforward. I just want to be a quiet teacher. Fang Yan refused with a smile. Reading, writing, and being with students, this is the best life I can imagine. Zhou Deqiang and his two friends immediately blushed. They felt that their hearts were too vulgar and dirty, and they were not worthy to talk and chat with Fang Yan. It was blasphemy to look at them. After the accident, everyone's mood was a little unstable. Under the security guard, the group of people retreated to the side of the road to drink water and rest. Songgu was completely convinced by Fang Yan this time. No, it had risen to the level of worship. He now recalled how stupid it was to say that this guy had no talent and could not be used. He repeatedly expressed his gratitude to Fang Yan and hoped that they could contact each other more in the future. Fang Yan understood Song Ji's mentality and did not embarrass him anymore. Since there was no replacement for Xia Xia, he would not say anything more. Song Gu squatted in front of Xia Xia and said with a face full of fear, Xia Xia, it's all my fault. I really didn't expect such a thing to happen. If I didn't choose such a dangerous place to shoot, you wouldn't have encountered such danger. Why don't we change places to shoot the MV? Many people in the entertainment industry were superstitious. They believed in all kinds of gods. Every time they started filming, they would hold a starting ceremony and pray to the gods to bless them with smooth sailing and smooth shooting. Encountering an extremely dangerous thing during filming like today, almost causing casualties, made them feel that this was not an auspicious place. Changing the venue was also a matter of course. I almost fell off the cliff because I accidentally stepped on a snake. It has nothing to do with the venue you chose. Xia Xia said. If you think this venue is not good enough, we can change to a better one. However, if it's just because of this sudden accident, I think it's still better to shoot here. Fang Yan, what do you think? Next time, tie the safety rope. Fang Yan said. If I just happened to be dozing off or went to the toilet, wouldn't I not be able to chase after you to save you? Even if the others jumped down, they wouldn't be able to save you. Maybe they would fall even faster with you. A group of people laughed and the oppressive atmosphere finally eased a little. Xia Xia nodded and said, Fang Yan is right. We still choose to shoot in Tiger Leaping Gorge and we still follow the original shooting plan. However, we must do a good job with safety measures. Not only me but also my dear and Shaolin. Every staff member must do a good job with safety measures. People who are not related to the filming should not go there. Just stand in a safe area and do the logistics work. Miss, this time we will do a good job with safety. Zhou Deqiang promised. Yes. Don't feel pressured. Xia Xia comforted. When everyone went to work, Xia Xia sat next to Fang Yan. Xia Xia looked at Fang Yan and said, You haven't answered my question yet. What question? Fang Yan asked. Why did you jump down? Xia's bright and intelligent eyes stared at every frame of Fang Yan's facial expression and asked aloud. Because I can. Fang Yan said. Xia angrily kicked Fang Yan and said with a wry smile, What kind of answer is that? Do you think you're Wuxia mobile? I didn't think that much at the time. Fang Yan looked at Xia and said. If I didn't have this skill, I might have made the same choice as them. I would have shouted for help, Summer fell down, and then I would have waited for you to completely fall down, followed everyone to the Grand Canyon to find you, waited for the police to come, waited for your memorial service and maybe even shed some tears. However, with this skill, I know I can save you. I know how I should save you and I have to save you. That's why I jumped. Is that the reason? Xia asked. There was some regret, a little sadness but also a sense of relief and joy. After surviving a disaster there will be good fortune. Xia thought it must be like this, right? That's the reason. Fang Yan said. It's not as complicated as you think. If Song Gu fell down, would you save him like this? Xia didn't know why he would ask such a boring question. Isn't this kind of unreasonable question that a 17 or 18-year-old girl would ask when she's acting coquettishly with her boyfriend? It's impossible to happen or hasn't happened yet, and you have to find a definite answer. Isn't this making things difficult for people? Could it be that she had suddenly contracted the princess syndrome? Fang Yan said. You're not a broad-minded man. Because he's your compatriot? Xia broke the casserole and asked to the end. I'm not a broad-minded man, but I'm not a narrow-minded man either. Everyone has a family, parents, and children. If something happens to them, the ones who will be hurt the most will be the ones who love them the most. If I can save a family from a tragedy, I'm willing to do whatever I can to save them. This is the meaning of my martial arts, this is the meaning of the existence of Kung Fu. Fang Yan said with a dignified expression and a sincere voice. I just can't stand to see others cry. You guys are so great. Xia said. She was very glad that there was such a group of Wuxia martial artists, which gave them a sense of security. Americans have Spider-Man and Batman, can't Wuxia have her own superhero? Besides, only after you save them can you see how grateful others are to you, Fang Yan said. At that time your heart will be like drinking a bucket of ice water on a hot day. You will feel that your whole life has been sublimated. My heart is very happy. Fang Yan looked down at the pool of blood on his pants and was shocked. He said, Why am I bleeding? It doesn't make sense. He didn't encounter any danger at all. His actions to save people were very smooth and the process was very smooth. How did he get hurt? What's more, he was safe and didn't feel any pain. Xia's face suddenly turned red. She fiercely glared at Fang Yan and said, It's my blood. Chapter 297. Are you hurt? Fang Yan was shocked. He thought about it seriously. At that time he was quite careful to protect her. He didn't let her body touch the stone wall. When she fell on the tree he pressed his body on it first and then hooked the tree trunk with his hands. Could it be that she was scratched when she fell to the ground when she was frightened by the poisonous snake? Xia, the intellectual beauty, was also angry with Fang Yan. Her cheeks were red and her eyes were dripping water. She said angrily, You did it on purpose. I didn't do it on purpose. Fang Yan explained. If I deliberately hurt you, wouldn't it be better if I pretended not to see you fall off the cliff? I was kind enough to save you. How can you accuse me like this? Idiot. Xia kicked Fang Yan's knee. She got up and walked towards Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin. Remember to change your pants. Inexplicable. Fang Yan looked at the red blood on his trousers and said. Drama crew, please help me get a new pair of pants. There was still filming in a while. Fang Yan didn't want to play Tai Chi in a pair of blood-stained pants. Fortunately, he discovered it in advance. If it was discovered by the audience in the music video, it would be a great shame. Since Fang Yan performed a difficult ultimate teacher version of the hero saving the beauty in public, the entire crew regarded him as an idol and the number one person who couldn't be offended. His ranking was even higher than Xia. In this high mountain, if he accidentally fell down, he hoped that the hero could save him once, right? Besides, if he offended someone and they beat him up, he wouldn't have the chance to fight back. Presumably, his good colleagues and friends wouldn't help him. Therefore, everyone agreed to Fang Yan's request. As soon as Fang Yan shouted that he needed to change a pair of pants, two girls from the drama crew immediately ran over with several pairs of pants and asked Fang Yan which one he needed. Moreover, a round-faced girl blushed and asked Fang Yan if he needed her help changing pants. After all, she was a professional in this area. Fang Yan refused. Did they think they were 3 years old? He couldn't even do something as simple as changing his pants? It was too infuriating. Due to the incident of falling off a cliff in the summer, the production team raised the safety level to an unprecedented level. Other than the actors and cameramen, everyone else retreated to a safe area. Several security assistants whipped all the surrounding bushes with sticks. If there were any venomous snakes or scorpions, they would either drive them away or beat them to death with a stick. They were also holding back their anger in their hearts. If it wasn't for that poisonous snake rushing to Xia Xia's feet, they wouldn't be so passive right now. Fang Yin went to the opposite cliff. Walk over there. Ordinary experts would not easily make a move, and those who did so were definitely not peerless experts. In this regard, Shimen Shui was very arrogant and pretentious. He first announced to the Jianghu, if a sword is not unsheathed, blood will be shed. When an enemy came to challenge him, he killed him with a single slash. His friend came to challenge him and he killed him with a single slash. Her son came over to challenge her, and she secretly beat him up, pretending that nothing had happened. In this way, who would dare to challenge him? No one dared to challenge him, and he was able to maintain his reputation of being undefeated. Therefore, Fang Yin always felt that Shimen Shui was the smartest person in the Jianghu. Assistant Director Wang Ku treated Fang Yin differently this time. He personally walked to Fang Yin with the safety lock and asked, Master Fang, you don't need this thing, do you? I don't need it, Fang Yin said. He wanted to do Tai Chi without any scruples. What was a rope tied around his waist? But the others must be tied up. Understood. Understood. Wang Ku said with a smile. How can they be compared to Master Fang? We were just talking about how you can see a tiger jumping from one cliff to the other on a full moon night. Although we didn't see a real tiger jumping, we saw Mr. Fang jumping off the cliff. He jumped off the cliff to save someone. This is much more exciting than a tiger jumping off a cliff. It's just a small trick. Director Wang, you flatter me. Fang Yin said with a smile. Master Fang, this is the appearance of a real dragon. It's not a real dragon. It's just a fake dragon, Fang Yin said modestly. Wang Ku opened his mouth, but he didn't know how to continue. But he also realized that keeping silent was a very impolite behavior, so he quickly said, Mr. Fang, can we start? Miss Ya's side is ready. Fang Yin looked at the opposite cliff. Xia, Jiangqin, and Yuan Lin were dressed in black and stood in a triangle. Xia stood at the front, while Jiangqin and Yuan Lin stood on the left and right of her. The three girls were beautiful and charming. Wearing Tai Chi, they gave people a feeling of valiance. High mountains and deep valleys, the red sun rose and the fog filled the air, making them look like immortals. One could imagine the visual impact when all of this was put into the camera. Song Gu raised her hand and shouted, Action. Wang Ke shouted at the same time, Start. So, Fang Yin bowed slightly, held his hands in a circle, and began to draw a circle with the tip of his foot. Summer also began to dance. Xia pushed her hand and Jiangqin and Yuan Lin followed. Xia turned around and Jiangqin and Yuan Lin also turned around at the same time. Several cameras moved at the same time, capturing the people on both sides of the cliff and making a moving picture. As the sun rose, rays of sunlight shone down, painting Fang Yan's body with a layer of gold. Even the mountains, the trees, the flowers, the grasses, and the pitch-black stones began to shine with a golden light. However, in the place where the sun didn't shine, the darkness was still sleeping, and the evil was still spreading. A man whose entire body was covered in green was lying flat on the grass, his mouth emitting a soft hissing sound. He took out a shiny leather bag from his bosom and opened it. A small snake with a fiery red body crawled out of the bag. The snake had no eyes, but it had a keen sense of smell. Urged by the hissing sound, it jumped up and rushed toward the forest in the distance. The man's triangular eyes showed a happy smile. He shook the leather bag and said in a very strange voice, After drinking this bag of tonic, Little Red will complete the third transformation, right? What color will it become at that time? I'm really looking forward to it. Master. A clear shout suddenly came from behind him. The triangular-eyed man was shocked, and his body bounced on the ground and jumped up. He had short hands and feet, and there was a black mole on his face with red hair. His face looked quite strange. When he got up, he had already screwed the lid of the leather bag to prevent a drop of the liquid inside from leaking out. The triangular-eyed man stared at the Taoist priest on the tree. His voice was hoarse as if his vocal cords had been torn. He shouted angrily, Who are you? His expression was very vigilant, and his eyes were staring at the man in front of him. When he was invisible, he would set up a large formation of spiritual insects within 100 meters. Whenever there was a slight movement, the poisonous insects would make a sound to warn him. However, this Taoist priest came without anyone noticing. The spiritual snake formation was nothing, and he didn't even notice when he was a few meters away from him. It was really too strange. Was the thing you released just now a blood eater? Tianjizi asked coldly. Who are you? The triangular-eyed man asked again. You nourish your blood with poison, feed your snake with poisonous blood, and know how to set up a large formation of poisonous insects. Are you the Xiangxi Snake King? Tianjizi exposed the triangular-eyed man's identity. Who are you? The Snake King felt extreme danger. This man had broken through his spiritual snake array and exposed his identity. Moreover, after knowing his identity, this man was still arrogant and did not put him in his eyes at all. He was a little annoyed. It doesn't matter who I am. A poisonous creature like you who is neither human nor ghost, should be killed by everyone. Tianjizi said coldly. He didn't even want to tell others his name. The meaning of this sentence was very simple and straightforward. I can kill you, but you don't need to know my name. Because killing you is not something to be proud of. Go to hell. Tianjizi jumped up and struck with his palm. It was a light palm. Boom. The place where the Snake King was standing was smashed into a hole. The Snake King rolled on the ground. When he got up, his face was covered in blood. He was as sinister as a snake, as cunning as a snake, as ghostly as a snake, and as vicious as a snake. He appeared and disappeared unpredictably. The name of the Xiangxi Snake King could stop children from crying at night and adults from urinating frequently. He was known for his speed. No one could keep up with him since he started his cultivation. However, he was unable to dodge the Taoist priest's palm strike. Tianjizi's body was still floating in the air. What was even more strange was that his feet stepped on the air and continued to rise in the air. He also twisted his body at the same time. If Fang Yin saw this, he would be so shocked that he would be speechless. The Wudong sect had the cloud-climbing ladder. It was regarded as the secret Qinggong of the Wudong sect. If that was all, Fang Yin wouldn't think it was too amazing. More importantly, this Taoist priest wasn't using the cloud-climbing ladder. He was using the more advanced heaven-climbing ladder. His ability to stay in the air was so powerful that it made people's hair stand on end. It really made people want to hug his leg and call him Godfather. The Taoist priest was surprised that he didn't kill the Snake King with his palm. This was really insulting. It meant that he was still alive and that it was unbelievable that he did not die from a single slap. Although the Snake King lived in seclusion in the valley, he still understood the emotional changes of humans. He wiped the blood off his face and was about to fight back. The Taoist priest's legs were floating in the air. He rushed toward where he was and struck again. Chapter 298. His body floated in the air as if he was riding on a cloud. This time he was even faster. His raised palms looked ordinary and didn't have any special effects, but it was more dangerous for the Snake Lord. Because he had lived with snakes for many years, eating and sleeping with them, he had the sensitivity and vigilance of a snake. He could sense danger. The Snake Lord was furious. He didn't do anything to provoke him, but he was doing bad things. Why did the bastard old Taoist want to kill him? His lips puckered up and a shrill whistling sound came from his mouth. Snake Chariot. It was a high-level secret technique that could control poisonous snakes. He used the Snake Chariot to urge the poisonous snakes to fight for him. This was a fighting method that used sound to tempt people. Sure enough, the pure land that was 100 meters in radius without a single venomous snake or insect had suddenly turned into a land of evil in the world. Countless poisonous snakes of different sizes and shades of color were running in this direction. There were also some scorpions and other unknown poisonous creatures following them. Some frogs and mosquitoes were swept up by them and ran forward according to their rhythm. In the process of running, they were eaten by them in one bite. In the world of the Snake Lord, poisonous snakes were the absolute kings. The divine Jizi was in the air, so the poisonous snakes couldn't attack him. Therefore they raised their heads high and made creepy sounds. They were like a group of hungry children, waiting for the divine Jizi to fall. As long as Tianjizi fell to a certain location, they would attack together and devour Tianjizi's skin, flesh and bones. In the psychedelic world of the Snake Chariot, these poisonous snakes felt very hungry and had to find something to fill their stomachs. And under the guidance of their master, they would have a very crazy need for a certain object. The divine Jizi was furious. He put his hands together and crossed his fingers. The inside of his two thumbs collided with each other. He shouted, "Army!" Boom. His voice was like bronze knives and flying arrows. It was also like the Sanskrit of Buddhism. It could resist all evil spirits and demons in the world. Lin Bing and Doja were all in formation. This was the 9 symbols mantra of Taoism. What Tianjizi used was the word army from the 9 syllables of Taoism. The 9 syllables originated from the Eastern Jin dynasty's famous Taoist Guhong's Biopuzi, inner volume. It goes like this: God said, "Those who fight with soldiers are always in groups." Ever since Guhong, the 9 words proverb of Taoism had been rumored to have great power. However, many people tried to recite it to no avail. Hence, the 9 words proverb was nothing more than a rumor. The Tantric sect was influenced by Taoism and adapted the 9 secret words. He mistakenly copied array in front as array in front, or display in front, and used it to this day. From the little finger to the thumb, they arranged the 5 elements, namely earth, water, fire, wind, and air. The right hand was wisdom and the left hand was stability. With the 10 fingers connecting inside and outside as the meridians, and the chi and chakras in the body as the weft, they practiced the 6 elements. It could be said that the esoteric sect had made the 9 syllable Sanskrit famous. However, the Taoists still maintained this secret technique. Of course, not many people knew about it. The fact that Tianjizi knew the 9 syllables of Buddhist incantation and was proficient in using it showed that he had a high status in the Taoists. The word army from Tianjizi was like a huge bell, solemn and dignified. The word army carried a strong killing intent and was very aggressive. When the poisonous snakes and animals heard the shout, they immediately retracted their raised heads. They actually cut off the sound field of the snake carriage and turned around to escape into the depths of the forest. In an instant, all the poisonous creatures on the ground were swept away. Only the snake lord was badly injured, bleeding from his 7 apertures due to the sound of the word army. Tianjizi slapped down with his palm, and Snake Lord's body flew into the sky like an ugly puppet. The Snake Lord knew that he couldn't resist Tianjizi's attack, so he didn't resist it. Instead, he borrowed the force to escape. He didn't expect that the dwarf-like body had great wisdom. Tianjizi cursed inwardly. When he was about to give chase again, the Snake Lord had already disappeared. Instead, black smoke spread out in all directions. Tianjizi waved his sleeves and walked in the opposite direction of the black smoke. The white-browed old monk sat on a boulder at the top of the mountain, meditating and chanting scriptures. Tianjizi didn't pay attention to him even when he came over. Tianjizi found a boulder and sat down to meditate alone. They had different beliefs, but they respected each other. It wasn't like thousands of years ago when the Buddhist and Taoist sects were sworn enemies and fought each other. After he finished chanting the Rangyen mantra every morning, the white-browed old monk opened his eyes and looked at Tianjizi. He said, "You Taoists cultivate fate. If you don't have fate, you won't even hesitate to kill. If you used a thunderous method right from the start, I don't believe that poisonous creature could escape from your hands. Regardless of whether it's fate or karma, we have to let nature take its course. This poisonous creature should be a calamity in that brat's life. Why should I disturb the cycle of the world? That poisonous creature is a bit strange. Aren't you afraid that it will hurt that brat? If the inheritor of the Tai Chi diagram we chose can't even deal with this little snake, how can we protect the peace of the Dragon Soul nation of Wuxia? You're even more stubborn." "Yes, I've given up," Tianjizi said. "The world asks us for karma. Who do we ask for the karma? What will come will come. What will go will go. Wind, rain, thunder, lightning, flowers bloom and wilt. All of them have their own destiny. Tampering with them at will result in divine punishment." "Then let's wait and see," the long-browed monk said. "Tang Xin has gone through 81 difficulties to obtain the scripture. This brat has to show some ability to get the Tai Chi diagram." Tianjizi smiled bitterly and said, "It's good that he's willing to accept it. If he doesn't, we can only let the other brats take advantage of it." "I'm afraid it won't be cheap," the long-browed monk said. He closed his eyes, put his hands together, and once again faced the morning sun to do his homework. The sun was full of kindness and benevolence. Tianjizi chanted, "Immeasurable Heavenly Lord," and sat down cross-legged without saying anything. As soon as he sat down, his body became bright and dark. When the light was bright, so was he. When the light was dim, so was he. It looked quite magical. If Fang Yen saw this, he would probably exclaim that this old guy's entire body was a treasure. Fang Yen didn't have the clairvoyance eye, so he naturally couldn't see what was beyond his field of vision. He was busy practicing Tai Chi as the sun became brighter and warmer. His movements became bigger and bigger. He moved up and down, but it was beautiful and natural. On the opposite cliff, Xia Xia led Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin into the climax of the 12 styles of Tai Chi. The boxing movements of the three beautiful women, one big and two small, were even more pleasing to the eye than Fang Yan's side. At least that was what the male compatriots thought. Click. Song Gu shouted loudly into the walkie-talkie and made a stop gesture. Click. Wang Ku also hurriedly shouted to stop. The movement stopped and the machine stopped. Song Gu explained to Wang Ku and Fang Yan through the walkie-talkie, saying, "Great, the performance is very good. This is the most wonderful Tai Chi I have ever seen. I can imagine how wonderful and beautiful it will be after it is edited. I can't bear to shout, but I have to shout. Master Fang seems to be in good condition, but Miss Xia and Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin are already tired, and their foreheads are full of sweat. Take a break for a while and then we will shoot some more shots." Xia was indeed a little tired. She had just experienced such a critical moment of life and death, and her performance in front of the camera was not as relaxed and casual as her usual Tai Chi. She also needed to pay attention to the language and emotional expression of the camera. Her body really couldn't hold on. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were even more tired. The amount of exercise this morning was much more than their usual training at school. Hearing that they could rest, the logistics staff immediately rushed over and helped Xia, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin to rest on the platform. The staff also put away the camera equipment and withdrew from the dangerous area of the cliff. In the place where they had just left, a small fiery red snake crawled out of the grass with a hissing sound. After returning to the hotel, they took a shower and rested, and then gathered for lunch. Lunch was not held in the internal restaurant of the Xinxia Hotel, because everyone felt that the food in the hotel was not delicious. After asking the guide, the crew went to a restaurant that looked pretty good. The restaurant also maintained the characteristics of Xinxia Mountain. The restaurant was built against the cliff, and next to it was a bottomless valley. Of course, the side was blocked with thick branches to prevent guests from accidentally falling off the cliff. Mountain mushroom chicken, wild vegetable flour fried wild eggs, fresh bamboo shoots fried with twice-cooked pork, white radish stew with a lot of chili and spices. It was full of aroma and spiciness and everyone was sweating profusely. Song Gu raised the cup of farm-brewed sour plum wine and said loudly, "The food is so delicious that I haven't had time to say until now, everyone has worked hard today. Come, let's have a toast." Everyone raised their cups at the same time and drank the sour plum wine in one gulp. Fang Yan liked the taste of this kind of sour plum wine very much and he could taste it. This plum wine added several herbs from the mountains, which had the effect of promoting blood circulation and removing blood stasis, strengthening the kidneys and health care, and was very effective for sub-healthy people. Fang Yan was going to buy more from the boss when he left, and bring it back for his grandparents. Lu Chaoga's aunt could also take some, and that woman's physical condition was even more worrying. If she also went, Lu Chaoga would be alone in this world without a relative. Even Xia, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin drank it all in one gulp, and did not act perfunctorily. At this moment, Fang Yan suddenly heard a slight noise in the grass behind him. He listened attentively and a red line came to the back of his neck. It was as fast as a meteor, incredibly fast. Before anyone noticed anything wrong, Fang Yan turned 90 degrees like lightning. He picked up the red line with his chopsticks. A surprising scene appeared. The red line felt danger and actually changed direction to escape sideways. How could Fang Yan let him escape? His body suddenly jumped out and he and the chair flew together to the red line. Crack. His chopsticks picked up a small, fiery red snake. After looking at the red line on the snake's body carefully, Fang Yan was so happy that his face almost changed shape. He raised his chopsticks and was about to put the snake into the sizzling soup pot, saying, "I'll give you a big tonic dish." Chapter 299. Fang Yan often felt very lonely. For example, when a person didn't know what to eat for dinner, or when a person forgot to bring paper while squatting in the toilet, or when he wanted to put the blood eater into the pot of soup but no one agreed, he felt that no one understood him. "Fang Yan, don't put that kind of dirty thing into the pot, throw it away." Xia looked at the fiery red earthworm-like object in the middle of the chopsticks in Fang Yan's hand and said while suppressing her disgust. She felt her stomach twitching at a glance. How could she throw it into the soup pot? Who would dare to eat that kind of thing? "Mr. Fang, hurry up and trample it to death. It's so disgusting, I have goosebumps. What is that thing? Earthworm? Or snake?" Jiang Qin also couldn't stand this kind of ugly mollusk. She was most afraid of soft things like earthworms or snakes. "Mr. Fang, raise your chopsticks." "Yes, that's it. I'll take a picture and send it to my circle of friends." "Okay, I'm done, you can throw it away." "Throw it off the cliff, it's uncomfortable to look at." Yuan Lin's mentality was quite good, but her suggestion was still to throw this thing away. Others also wanted to suggest that Fang Yan throw this thing away, but because their relationship with Fang Yan was not as close as that of Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, and because of the threat of Fang Yan's powerful force, they didn't dare to say it. Song Gu opened her mouth, but finally decided to temporarily stand aside. It's just a pot of soup, it's fine if it's ruined, but it's not good to offend Fang Yan. Throw it away? This group of prodigal women, they don't even know how precious this thing is. Things like ginseng, deer antler, bear paw and so on are not even dregs in front of it. This kind of snake is called the blood eater, raised with poisonous blood. Every time it sheds its skin, a cycle will occur. There are already 2 white lines on its body, and one has already appeared, which means that it is about to have 3 cycles. After 100 revolutions, the snake could transform into a flood dragon. The flood dragon experienced thousands of tribulations, ascended to become a dragon and controlled a region of rainwater. Of course, this was just a myth. However, most myths and legends actually had their origins. It was rare to see a vampire who was about to undergo his 3rd transition. After it completed its 3rd revolution, who knew what kind of existence it would become? Moreover, as a venomous snake that grew up on poisonous blood, its entire body was filled with poison. If the snake's venom was removed, its flesh would be unbelievably delicious. Fang Yan had eaten pufferfish before, and the taste of that thing couldn't be compared to this vampire. Of course, Fang Yan hadn't eaten a vampire yet. Because vampires were venomous snakes raised by humans, they were treated like precious treasures. Who would be willing to use one to make snake soup? Fang Yan gently sighed and said, "Since no one is willing to share it, then I will enjoy it alone. You can't say that I'm eating it alone." Fang Yan turned to the owner of the restaurant who had rushed over after hearing the news and said, "Prepare a glass bottle for me. The kind you use to make wine." "All right. Our restaurant makes our own plum wine. Sometimes when customers like it, they will ask us for a few bottles to bring back to show filial piety to their elders. So our restaurant specially prepared a lot of glass bottles that can hold up to half a caddy. I will prepare them for you right now," the owner said. "Master Fang, you want to use it to make wine?" Song Gu asked curiously. "Yes," Fang Yan said. "Let me tell you, this snake wine is good stuff. Not to mention mosquito bites and all kinds of snake venom, it can even get rid of malignant tumors. Of course, you have already rejected my good intentions, so this thing is mine alone." "It's that magical?" Song Gu asked uncertainly. "It can also strengthen the kidneys," Fang Yan said softly. Regret appeared on Song Ji's face and she said, "Then when Master Fang's medicinal wine is done, I will ask for a cup to drink?" "No problem," Fang Yan said with a smile. "That is, if you still have it when you come." Seeing Song Gu staring at the vampire in the middle of the chopsticks, Fang Yan raised the vampire and handed it over, saying, "For you?" Song Gu was so scared that she kept stepping back. She was still afraid of this weird thing. The owner quickly brought over a glass bottle with a rubber stopper. Fang Yan let the owner pull the stopper and then used the chopsticks to stuff the vampire in. This thing didn't have eyes, but it was extremely sensitive. As soon as Fang Yan let go of the chopsticks, it turned around and wanted to escape. Unfortunately, it wasn't as fast as Fang Yan. Fang Yan had already stuffed the cork back into the bottle and blocked it inside. "Give me half a caddy of white wine. The strongest wine you have here," Fang Yan said. "Then Central Plains white? 65 degrees. The owner said. "Okay, that's it," Fang Yan said. So, Fang Yan poured a bottle of Central Plains white with 65 degrees into the glass bottle. As soon as the white wine was poured in, the vampire desperately struggled and dodged in the bottle. Obviously, it liked fresh blood, not this stimulating alcohol. Fang Yan closed the bottle and let it roll around inside. Bang bang bang, his strength was so great that the glass bottles were banging noisily from his slaps. Moreover, when Fang Yan deliberately put the bottle on the table to observe, the bottle kept shaking on the wooden table, as if it could fall or fly away at any time. Screech, 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 the sound coming from its mouth became louder and louder and then quieter. After 10 minutes it finally stopped moving. "Is it dead?" Yuan Lin asked curiously. The little girl was very interested in new things and she was the only one who ran behind Fang Yan to watch. Because she was lazy, she even put her chin on Fang Yan's shoulder. "It's pretending to be dead," Fang Yan said. "If we don't soak it for 7 days and 7 nights and open the bottle, it might escape. Of course it will escape if it bites someone to death. This kind of snake is very vengeful." Everyone's hair stood on end. Xiaji said, "Really? This snake, it knows how to cheat?" What kind of animal doesn't know how to cheat? Fang Yin said with a smile. People have their own ways to protect themselves, and animals also have their own ways to protect themselves. Besides, snakes are sinister creatures, so it's not strange that they know such strange tricks. Seeing such a monster swaying in front of them, everyone lost their appetite. Fang Yin looked at everyone and said with a smile, "Are you all full? If you are, let's go back. I can also take this thing under the sun." On the way back to the hotel, everyone stayed away from Fang Yin. Who wouldn't panic if they saw him holding a bottle like that, as if he was hugging his own son with a face full of love? After escorting everyone back to the hotel safely, Fang Yin returned to his room. Holding the glass bottle in his hand and looking at the vampire that was pretending to be dead, Fang Yan's face became cold. Conspiracy. This was a killing trap. The snake that jumped at Xiaji shouldn't have jumped out by accident, right? The snake was controlled by someone and scared the defenseless Xiaji on the top of the mountain. Xiaji accidentally fell off the cliff, and the only person who had the ability to save Xiaji was himself. If the person behind the scenes continued to attack while he was flying down the cliff to save Xiaji, he and Xiaji would probably be in fatal danger. Why didn't he attack immediately? And the vampire in his hand didn't attack until it was time to eat. If it had appeared when Xiaji fell off the cliff, then the situation might have been very different, right? Fang Yin didn't know that when the Snake Lord was about to control the poisonous snake to give Fang Yin a fatal blow, he was attacked by Tianjizi. Without the control of the snake chariot, the vampire's ability was greatly reduced, and he lost the best opportunity to attack. Who on earth dug such a big hole and wanted to bury himself in it? Fang Yin always felt that he was a good person, but why did a good person have so many disasters? I'm just King talker, I'm not a big evil person. Why does everyone have to make life difficult for me? Fang Yin put the glass bottle on the windowsill where the noon light shone. Sure enough, the vampire in the bottle was most afraid of sunlight. His body rolled and twitched in the bottle again. Fang Yin ignored it, closed the door and left the room. Big hole. Blood. Footprints. Fang Yin used a stick to check the viscosity of the blood and calculated the time. It happened to appear when Xiaji fell off the cliff. The big hole was also turned over new soil. According to Fang Yan's eyes, it was blasted out by someone's energy because the soil was too broken and turned into powder. Only strength qi could indiscriminately grind the soil into powder. Fang Yan's expression was solemn. What kind of person could have such internal strength? Also, the person blasted it down from the sky, which was why the hole felt like it was being compressed. Fang Yin imagined the battle in his mind and realized that there were some actions that even he couldn't do, or could do better than the person who did it. Thinking of this, Fang Yin felt a little relieved. Xixia Mountain wasn't small, but it wasn't big either. There were only two people who could have such skills. One was him and the other one didn't need to say who it was. Tianjizi helped him avoid a disaster. But if it was Tianjizi, why did he let the poisonous creature escape? If you want a disciple, you have to be serious. If you work half-heartedly like this, who would want to follow you? Fang Yin thought in his heart. He walked to the high valley and bowed slightly towards the east. He knew that he could see his gratitude. Where even now? Fang Yin thought happily. Bastard. At a stream at the foot of the mountain, a middle-aged Taoist saw Fang Yin like a black dot and gritted his teeth. Bowing is considered repaying a debt of gratitude? How can there be such a good thing? Just you wait, you and I are fated. Don't think of escaping from my palm. Chapter 300. When Fang Yin returned to the Xinxia Hotel and was about to open the door of the room next door suddenly opened. Xiaji, wearing a set of white casual clothes, stood at the door, poked his head out and said, "I made a pot of pu'er tea. Do you want to come over and have a drink?" "I'm a little tired. I'll go back and take a bath," Fang Yin said. "Then I'll wait for you. When are you coming? I'll help you soak it up." Xia Kiki smiled as she looked at Fang Yin and said firmly. Fang Yin knew that he couldn't hide, so he turned around and walked in front of Xiaji, saying, "Then let's try your craft first. If I didn't insist, would you be unwilling to come over?" Xiaji knew Fang Yan's mentality like the back of his hand. He let Fang Yin in and said, "I have something to ask you." Pu'er tea was indeed brewed in Xiaji, but the tea was slightly cold, and the taste was already the second tea. Fang Yin looked at Xiaji, who said matter-of-factly, "I drank the first one myself. The taste is a little light, you won't like it, but it suits my taste. The second one was the best. It was originally prepared to be used to entertain guests. I knocked on the door and you weren't in the room, so it was cold. I poured it out. Using the third tea to entertain you won't make you feel wronged, right? Of course not. Fang Yen watched Xiaji's slender hands pour out the herbal tea in the teacup, and then pour in warm water to soak it again. After Fang Yen held a cup of hot tea in his hand and tasted it, Xiaji asked, "What's going on with that snake?" Fang Yen looked at Xiaji and asked with a wry smile, "What did you find?" "I didn't find anything before. I thought it was just an accident, and that the green snake that hit my calf was just a coincidence," Xiaji said. "But when we were eating, a second snake appeared, and it was such a strange poisonous snake. I felt that something was wrong. Some time ago when I was rehearsing at Xiaxia Mountain, I also encountered snakes, but those snakes turned around and ran away when they saw people and I couldn't catch up. Unlike the two poisonous snakes today who actually knew how to sneak attack and pretend to be dead, Fang Yen would never underestimate a woman's IQ. The women around him, whether it was Lu Chaoga, Qin Tian, or even his childhood sweetheart, Phoenix, who had failed in his first love, were all extremely smart. Although Yi Ro was a bit barbaric and violent, no one dared to say that she wasn't smart. How could an unintelligent woman have such a high level of martial arts cultivation at such a young age? Therefore Fang Yen decided to be honest. "Are you thinking too much?" Fang Yen said. "Someone was struck by lightning twice in a day. Such unlucky things can happen. What's the big deal about encountering two snakes in a day?" "Fang Yen, you're not honest." Xia looked at Fang Yen and said. "Just as you said, even if we can't be a couple, we're still friends, right? Shouldn't friends be honest?" "Haven't you heard of white lies?" Fang Yen asked helplessly. Smart women should abide by the rule of silence at the right time, which Xia didn't do well. Xia's expression became serious and said, "Are you worried that they will kill me?" "Xia, I don't know where you come from, but I know that you know Lanshan Valley, and you seem to have a good relationship with them. I can also see the fear of you in the eyes of Songgu and the others. I know that you have an extraordinary background, and that you can smash a big hole in the floor if you throw out your father's name or your father's name. However, there is such a group of people in this world, and the power of the city has no restraints on them. If you want to know, I can tell you everything. If you want to be lazy, we can talk about other topics." "Fang Yen, you underestimate me." Xia looked at Fang Yen sternly and said, "Just as you said, because my family is still passable, my father or my father's father is also somewhat famous, so I have been exposed to a wide range of things since I was young. Strange. I have heard a lot of anecdotes and seen a lot of hidden experts. I know that there is a group of people in this world who are not bound by the secular world or even the law. They can't ignore the law and they are bold and reckless. They don't care about fame and fortune and they don't even care about life and death. They are scary, but this is not a reason for me to escape. I don't care who they are and I don't care what they might do to me in the future. Just because they almost made me fall off the cliff and die, he owes me an explanation, owes my parents an explanation, and owes my Xia family an explanation. Fang Yen, they owe me an explanation," Xia said with a voice like a knife. Slash after slash, the air and the atmosphere were broken into pieces, no longer complete and harmonious. Which child of an aristocratic family doesn't have a little arrogance? Some people show their arrogance on their faces so they become the idiots that everyone crushes. Some people hide their arrogance in their hearts, so many people praise them for not putting on airs. Xia belongs to the kind of people who put their arrogance in their hearts. She put her arrogance in her heart, but it didn't mean that she was willing to be bullied. Before she understood what happened, she just thought that it was an accident. She put all her gratitude on Fang Yen. However, when she realized that it was a blatant murder, she was furious. Her feelings were divided into two, one was gratitude to Fang Yen, and the other was hatred for the murderer. No one can take away her life at will. Although for the killer she was just a chess piece that others wanted to deal with Fang Yen. Fang Yen understood what she was thinking. He sighed softly and said, "His name is Snake Lord and he comes from Xiangxi. If you want revenge, now is the right time, he is injured." Xia pursed her lips and smiled, saying, "You hurt him?" "Not me. It's someone else." Xia thought for a moment and said, "It seems that it's the Jinren who wants to accept you as a disciple. It's really not a lucky thing for a woman to be too smart." Fang Yen said with emotion again. A senior said that a woman with great wisdom like a demon will either become a mistress or a nun. "I know who the senior you are talking about is." Xia giggled and said. Fang Yen asked with a smile, "Who do you think it is?" "The Shen family's fairy, soars into the sky to pick the clouds." Have you heard of this sentence? The smile on Fang Yan's face slowly froze, turning into an exquisite-looking genuine leather mask. There is no banquet in the world that never ends. This sentence is very tacky because such cases happen every day. Xia brought Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin back to shoot a music video. After 2 days of hard work, one day was used to shoot the video, and the other day was used to shoot some special scenes. The preliminary work was basically over. The post-editing and production had nothing to do with Fang Yan, and it would not be done in Hua City. There was an exclusive production company in Beijing in the summer. Of course, Fang Yan also made a request to Xia. After the video was cut, he had to review it. If it did not meet his aesthetic standards, he had the right to ban the video. Everyone was well aware of what Fang Yan's aesthetic standards were. He was busy with work in the summer, so he flew to Xiangtan to participate in a charity song. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were supposed to go back to Beijing with the group, but the two girls were reluctant to leave. Jiang Qin asked for a leave of absence from Xia, hoping to stay at home with his parents for a day. Xia was kind, so he naturally agreed. Thus, Jiang Qin, who had obtained Xia's permission, secretly ran to Fang Yan and asked Fang Yan to agree to one of her requests. What request? Fang Yan asked. Go shopping with me. Jiang Qin said. Fang Yan had a headache and said, we are an adult and a child. If we walk together, someone will definitely scold me for eating young grass. Why don't you find someone else? Isn't Yuan Lin fine? Ask her to go shopping with you, okay? When we were in Beijing, the two of us would go shopping almost every day. Who wants her to accompany me? I want you to accompany me. Can you accompany me? Mr. Fang, please, give me a reason. Fang Yan was unmoved. I want to buy a gift for my dad. You can help me with it. Jiang Qin said. Where did you get the money? Stupid teacher. Didn't Yuan Lin and I participate in Sister Xia's MV? We both have to get paid. Jiang Qin said proudly. I used to spend my parents' money. This is the first time I have earned money myself. So, the first thing I want to do when I get the money is to buy a gift for my parents. Seeing the girl's innocent and sincere smile, Fang Yan's heart was moved. He smiled and said, I don't know how many people want to shoot a music video for Xia Tian. She not only brought the two of you in but also paid you. Just because of your filial piety, I promise you. However, I know you only have 1 day off. So, you have to stay at home with your parents all day tomorrow. Tomorrow night, I will go shopping with you. If you accept my conditions, I will agree to your request. Jiang Qin stretched out his finger and said happily, Come, let's pinky swear. Pinky swear. Don't change for 100 years. Fang Yan didn't pinky swear with her. Who wouldn't change for 100 years with this kind of kid? Fang Yan had just walked to the school gate when the phone in his pocket rang. He looked at the caller ID and saw that it was Huang Haoran. He asked, Haoran, what's the matter? Mr. Fang, not good. Huang Haoran's voice was very anxious. The boys in our class fought with others. Fight? With who? Fang Yan asked anxiously. Is anyone injured? With students from Ivy High School. Huang Haoran said. 2 people were injured and have been sent to the hospital. Fang Yan had an urge to pinch those bastards to death. You're a student. Your occupation is to study hard and make progress every day. Why are you fighting? What's there to fight? If you want to fight, come fight with me. Go fight with Tangsheng. Which hospital? Fang Yan asked while gritting his teeth. Chapter 301. As soon as Fang Yan hung up the phone, someone shouted in his ear, Mr. Fang, what are you doing? Baldy. No, Captain Kai was standing behind Fang Yan with a smile, looking at Fang Yan as if he was looking at his lover. Fang Yan quickly took 2 steps back and said, Captain Kai, what's up? Don't call me Captain Kai, just call me Baldy. It's friendly, Baldy said generously. He looked at Fang Yan and asked, Mr. Fang, are you going back for dinner? I'm going back. Fang Yan nodded. Hurry up and go back, Baldy said. I just saw Zhang Qin go in through this door, he must be going to your house. Fang Yan immediately understood. Baldy had come over to get close to him because he wanted to freeload a meal at his house. Although Zhang Qin had successfully become Fang Yan's disciple, he still came to Fang Yan, Fang Yingying, and Fang Haohan from time to time to make a meal to improve their lives. It had to be said that Zhang Qin's cooking skills were quite good. It could be said to be professional. Baldy became a frequent guest after spending 2 free meals at Fang Yan's house. Many times he came uninvited. Fang Yan looked at Baldy with a bitter smile and said, You should go home for dinner. I just received a call, something happened to the students. Something happened? Baldy was a school security guard, so he was quite sensitive to the safety of students. What happened? A few students from my class fought with students from Evergreen High School. 2 others were injured and hospitalized, Fang Yan explained as he walked quickly to the side of the road, ready to hail a taxi. I have to go to the hospital. Baldy grabbed Fang Yan and said, Don't wait. It's rush hour now. You might not be able to hail a cab even if you wait for 2 hours. Let's go, I'll drive you. Fang Yan was shocked and said, Baldy, you bought a car? I bought it a long time ago, Baldy said arrogantly as he ran to the school gate. Fang Yan sighed in his heart. He thought to himself that the job of a school security guard was very lucrative. He could buy a car even without a rank. This is the car you bought? Fang Yan roared angrily. That's right. Baldy drove the car on the road, rampaging through the traffic and the sea of people like a fish diving into the sea, like a bird diving into the forest. Fang Yan thought that he might as well strangle the Baldy to death. In any case, when he saw those bastards fighting later, he would strangle a few of them to death. Killing one was killing a group was also killing. Baldy held the handlebars and nimbly avoided 2 young couples crossing the road. He explained to Fang Yan, who was sitting in the back without saying a word, The whole city is congested now. Only my car can run fast. From his explanation, Fang Yan could actually hear a faint sense of aloofness and pride. When they arrived at the entrance of the affiliated hospital, Baldy stopped the car and said, You go find your students first. I'll find a place to park. There are more and more cars these days and it's hard to find a parking space. Fang Yan jumped out of the back seat of the electric car. Baldy's short legs scratched the ground, and then he drove the electric car in the direction of the car shed. Fang Yan quickly ran to the inpatient department, and as he ran he called Huang Haoren. Which floor? Room 301 on the 3rd floor. Okay, I'll go there now. Their teacher is coming? Okay, you guys stay here first. I'll be there soon. Fang Yan didn't wait for the crowded elevator and he ran directly to the 3rd floor. The entrance to the corridor was room 301, and Huang Haoren was already waiting at the staircase. It wasn't a big deal for Fang Yan to joke around with the students normally, but when the students made a mistake, he had to take it seriously and punish them severely. If you don't take this matter to heart, then they won't even consider it a big deal. They would do even more outrageous things in the future. Thus, Fang Yan walked in front of Huang Haoren with a straight face and asked in a deep voice, How did you fight? Why did you fight with them? Mr. Fang, they went too far. Huang Haoren saw that Fang Yan was angry and he explained with a red face. How did they go too far? Didn't Tangqing represent our school in the Huaqing High School basketball tournament? When the finals were held in the Huaqing Stadium, Tangqing had a conflict with the captain of the Ivy League high school basketball team. You know how strong Tangqing is. At that time, the captain didn't get any advantage, so he held a grudge. Today, when Tangqing and we were having afternoon tea at Baishitang, the basketball captain also brought his team over. When he saw that he had the advantage in numbers, he deliberately called our Rosefinch High School trash, saying that we were all trash produced by a trash school. He also called Mr. Fang. What did they call me? Fang Yan asked. Huang Haoren opened his mouth but didn't dare to say anything. What did they call me? Fang Yan pressed. They said that Mr. Fang relied on a woman to get his position, and then formed cliques in the school to fight against dissidents. A lot of teachers are dissatisfied with you and are just waiting for an opportunity. Huang Haoren carefully said this sentence. I didn't say that, it was their basketball captain who said it. What's the name of their basketball captain? Fang Yan asked. Ma Haitao. With Tangqing there, the injured person must be from the Ivy League high school, right? Yes, Huang Haoren said embarrassedly. They called us trash and Tangqing called them worse than trash. A group of them surrounded us and wanted to beat us up, but Tangqing rushed out alone and knocked them all down. After knocking them down, Tangqing said, Look, you guys are worse than trash, right? Fang Yan was full of guilt. He felt that it was all his fault. He let all his students learn how to taunt. When Tangqing first entered the 9th class, he was such an upright and stupid child. How did he become like this in such a short time? Originally, there were only 2 injured people in the hospital, but Ma Haitao also said that his whole body was in pain after arriving at the hospital. He said that his internal organs were injured, and he needed to do a full body checkup. He was also lying on the hospital bed. He's trying to blackmail us. Where's Tangqing? Fang Yan asked. He went home, Huang Haoren said. Fang Yan was so angry that he stomped his feet. This bastard, after injuring someone, he ran home to hide? Who are you going to ask to clean up your mess? However, based on Fang Yan's understanding of Tangqing, this kid was proud and arrogant. When someone came to provoke him, he thought that it was natural to teach them a lesson. Who would be willing to follow behind him and send him to the hospital? After injuring someone, he went home to sleep. Only Tangqing would do such a thing. Let's go in and take a look, Fang Yan said. Fang Yan followed Huang Haoren into the ward. The boys in the 9th class lowered their heads and didn't dare to look at Fang Yan's eyes. In the corner stood 2 tall boys. They stared fiercely at Fang Yan, who had just walked in. There were 3 boys lying on the hospital bed. 2 of them were playing mobile games and the other one was buried in sleep. When they saw Fang Yan come in, they only raised their eyelids and then went back to their own things. Fang Yan walked in front of the big boy on the far left who was playing mobile games and said, "Classmate, how do you feel? Who are you? Go away, don't disturb Grandpa when he's playing games. Let me tell you, Rosefinch, this matter isn't over. Just you wait, there will be a time for you to suffer," the big guy said with a rude and unreasonable expression. "How can you talk like that? What's wrong with me talking like that?" The big guy threw the phone in his hand on the quilt and said with a sneer, "What? Do you want to fight? I don't believe that you dare to beat me up in this hospital. Let me tell you, if you dare to beat up a student in the hospital, my friend will immediately put the video on the internet and wait for your Rosefinch to become famous all over the country. When that time comes, you guys will also become famous and become the shame of the students all over the country. Do you want to try? It's not a big deal for me to be beaten up. I'm just afraid that you won't dare to take it." Fang Yan looked at the big guy and sighed softly. He said, "If I make a move, do you think they will have the chance to take out their phones to take pictures? Who do you think you are? Superman?" The guy who was pretending to sleep suddenly jumped up. 2 purple marks appeared on his handsome face. It seemed that Tangqing had taken special care of him. "You Rosefinch people are all good at fighting, right? Come hit me here. Do you have the ability to kill me? Why would I beat you to death? You're not my biological son or my godson. No matter how much of a bastard you are, it's your family's business. Why should I teach an unfilial son like you a lesson on behalf of your father?" "What did you say? Say it again if you dare. Although I don't think I have much ability, I'm not afraid of satisfying your special hobby. Why would I beat you to death? You're not my biological son or my godson. No matter how much of a bastard you are, it's your family's business. Why should I teach an unfilial son like you a lesson on behalf of your father?" Ma Haitao's eyes were bloodshot. He clenched his fists and was about to rush toward Fang Yan. "Haitao, stop!" A thin and tall boy wearing glasses hurriedly stopped him. "Liang Lian, why won't you let me beat him up?" Ma Haitao shouted angrily. "If you beat him up, you'll fall into his trap," Liang Lian quickly explained. "Before, they were the ones who beat us up. We didn't fight back. If you beat him up now, it'll be a group fight. When that time comes, we'll all get beaten up. Wouldn't we be at a disadvantage?" Ma Haitao thought about it and forcefully suppressed the anger in his heart. He pointed at Fang Yan and said, "Kid, it's not over between us. Just you wait, don't walk alone at night." Fang Yan stared at this guy with his eyes wide open. Did he want to beat him up with a stick? Huang Haoren, Gao Lei, and a few other boys from Class 9 also looked at Ma Haitao in surprise. Was this guy crazy? How dare he pick on Mr. Fang? What should they say? Welcome. At that moment, there was the sound of hurried footsteps at the door of the ward. Chapter 302. The footsteps were hurried. It seemed that the person who came was quite angry. A middle-aged male teacher with a tilted head walked in angrily. Seeing Huang Haoren, Fang Yan, and the others standing at the door of the ward, he started scolding them. "Do you have any manners? Your teacher didn't teach you how to fight. What's wrong with that? Why are your manners so bad? How did good students end up in the hospital after being beaten up by you? Do you know who you beat up? They are all specially recruited students of the Ivy League. Your Rosefinch Secondary is not bad, but compared to our Ivy League, you're not even qualified to carry our shoes. Let me tell you, this matter is not over. No matter who from your school comes, this matter will not be over. It's useless for you to apologize. It's useless even if your teacher comes, your school has to apologize. Your Rosefinch High apologizes to Ivy League High." There was also a slightly older man standing behind the middle-aged man. He seemed to be one of the leaders of the Ivy League High School. Huang Haoren and the other boys in Class 9 did not say a word, allowing the middle-aged teacher to attack them. For them, if the sky fell, there would be a tall person to hold it up. With teacher Fang Yan here, how could they be at a disadvantage? Lin Yubin thought that Huang Haoren and the others were silent because they were timid in front of the teacher, but he didn't know that these guys were all cunning and waiting to watch a good show. Lin Yubin was probably tired of scolding them. He pointed at the tallest Fang Yan and said, Is there anyone on your side who can solve the problem? If there's no one, I'll call your headmaster. Coming, Fang Yan said with a smile. He took a step forward and pointed at himself. I'll solve the problem. Seeing Fang Yan step forward, Lin Yubin and Fang Jianhong were a little stunned. Who was this young man? Was this the attitude of Rosefinch Secondary in dealing with this matter? Letting a student solve the problem? It was because they mistook Fang Yan for Rosefinch's student that Lin Yubin pointed at his face and scolded him for a long time. Lin Yubin and Fang Jianhong flew into a rage, feeling that they had been insulted. The few Ivy League students also had strange expressions on their faces. Could this guy be a student cadre? What made him think that he could erase a case of assault? Who would give him face? Who are you? Lin Yubin stared at Fang Yan and asked. I am their homeroom teacher, Fang Yan, Fang Yan said with a serious expression. The conflict between students from two different schools was a serious matter. Fang Yan had to handle it carefully. Otherwise, the school's reputation might be tarnished. It even caused a conflict between the two famous schools. I can handle this matter on their behalf. You're the full representative? This time, Fang Jianhong couldn't hold it in any longer. What right do you have to represent them? You and I are not on the same level. Ask your dean to come over. Fang Yan looked at Fang Jianhong and said, I don't think this matter has anything to do with position. Right is right, wrong is wrong. Could it be that this matter is right if our school's principal comes? Just because you're the head of teaching and I'm just an ordinary teacher, this matter is wrong? If everything is right and wrong based on the importance of position and rank, then what's the use of us teachers? What do the students need us to teach? Huang Haoran and the others, who understood Fang Yan's personality, looked at each other and then quickly separated. They knew that teacher Fang Yan was going to play dirty again. You, Fang Jianhong looked at Fang Yan mockingly and said, what a sharp-tongued teacher. Just because you know how to talk, Rosefinch High School sent you over to solve the problem? Aren't they looking down on our Ivy League too much? Lin Yubin laughed coldly and said, I won't talk to you, I won't talk to you. If your school's leaders don't come, we will seal up the medical records of these students and send them to the Department of Education. I don't believe that the Department of Education won't give us Ivy League students justice. When that time comes, your Rosefinch High School will definitely have a hard time, right? Fang Yan sighed softly and said, aren't you going too far by doing this? Going too far? Fang Jianhong said with a smile. Your students injured our students and hospitalized them. Who's going too far? The doctors can prove whether your students are injured or not, Fang Yan said. But as a teacher, shouldn't you at least understand the cause and effect of the matter after coming here? You didn't ask anything and just grabbed Rosefinch's students and scolded them. Is this how you deal with the problem? Our students were seriously injured and hospitalized. Do you still need to ask about the cause and effect? Even if there's a dispute, you can't just hit people, right? Who allowed them to hit people? Who gave them the right to do so? Let me tell you, if you don't expel these students who hit people, we will take the case to the Department of Education, Fang Jianhong said angrily. Director Fang, there's another culprit. His name is Tang Qing. He's the one who hit people the most. He will also be expelled. Ma Haitao, who had been lying on the bed pretending to be dead, hurriedly got up and said something to Tang Qing when he heard that the students who hit people were going to be expelled. He hated Tang Qing to the core. This time, no matter what, he wouldn't let him get away with it. Tang Qing was such a jerk. He hid his face in front of the girl he liked. After that, he told his first love that such a beautiful girl being with such a scumbag was a form of self-defilement. He also asked for his first love's phone number. Even now, his first love was still infatuated with him. She didn't pick up his calls and didn't reply to his messages. He had a very bad feeling about this. He dared to run away after hitting people? This kind of student is really audacious. Fang Jianhong was so angry that his body was trembling. He didn't run away. He just felt that this kind of thing was very boring, Fang Yan said with a smile. Your students first cursed and insulted others, then wanted to hit people. In the end, they were injured by the person they wanted to hit. Now, they are lying in the hospital pretending to be dead. What kind of behavior is this? Shameless to the point of death? You're slandering me. Lin Yubin resolutely retorted. After hitting people, they still put all the blame on our students. Just thinking about it makes my heart cold. Whether it's like this or not, you can ask your students. Of course, I know that they definitely won't tell you the truth. You also don't want to believe the truth that you can't accept. You rushed here in a hurry. If you sincerely want to solve the problem, let's sit down and have a good discussion. Your students are responsible and my students are also responsible. Whoever should be responsible should bear the responsibility, and whoever should be in the wrong should apologize. I will definitely not be partial to my students, but if you keep pestering us endlessly and want to overwhelm us in terms of momentum or prestige, I'm afraid you will be disappointed. Director Fong, we didn't curse, nor did we take the initiative to hit people. It was Rosefinch's students who started it. Yes, that Tangqing thinks that he knows some kung fu, so he provoked us again and again. He even called us trash and said that Ivy League is a trash school, so we specialize in producing trash like us. Tangqing took a fancy to Zhao Lu, a girl from our school. He went up to Zhao Lu and asked for her phone number. Zhao Lu didn't give it to him, so he cursed at her. We couldn't stand it anymore, so we argued with him. These students from Ivy League came prepared. They had already discussed their lines and were not afraid that Fang Yan would expose them. You make it sound better than a song, Fang Jianhong said disdainfully. Your students hurt people, but until now, I haven't seen you say a word of apology. Is this the attitude you have when dealing with problems? Director Fong, I would like to ask, from the beginning to the end, have you given me a chance to apologize? From the moment you appeared at the door of the hospital ward, you started to curse me and my students. Until now, have you discussed the truth of the matter with me? That's because you're not sincere enough. If you're sincere enough, you can also apologize when we scold you, Lin Yubin said. Fang Yin pointed at his face and said, What did you find on my face? What do you want to say? Lin Yubin said with an unfriendly look. He didn't care what he found on Fang Yan's face. Is there a word cheap written on my face? If not, why should I apologize to you when you scold me? It's fine if you don't want to apologize. Then wait until we hand over the evidence to the Department of Education. The Department of Education will punish you. At that time, the problem won't be solved with an apology. Fang Yan nodded and said, As you wish. I believe that the leaders of the Department of Education will clear our names. Fang Yan glanced at Huang Haoren and said, Let's go. Fang Yan turned around and left, not looking at Fang Jianhong, Lin Yubin and the others anymore. Huang Haoren and the others hurriedly followed him out, leaving only the teachers and students of Ivy League in the ward. He left just like that? Lin Yubin said in disbelief as he pointed at Fang Yan's back. This Rosefinch High School is too arrogant, isn't it? Each of you write a confession letter and send it to the Department of Education with the medical records. Fang Jianhong said with a sinister smile. This time Ivy League and Rosefinch will not rest until one of us is dead. Ma Haitao's face showed a proud expression and said, Director Fang, I'll call my father now. Ma Haitao's father worked in the Department of Education and was quite powerful. This was also the main reason why he could be specially recruited by Ivy League and not be expelled for causing trouble everywhere. Director Fang said with a face full of smiles, Send my regards to Director Ma. Tell him that I'll visit him when he's free. No problem, Ma Haitao said with a reserved smile. Ma Haitao called his father in front of everyone and pretended to be extremely wronged and said, Dad, I've been bullied, you have to help me get justice. Shut up. A dignified man's voice came from the other end of the phone. I know what kind of shameful things you've done. Immediately apologize to Rosefinch's teachers and students. If they don't forgive you, I'll come back and break your legs. Ma Haitao's face was pale. This time he was really scared sick. In order to show off that he had a director father, Ma Haitao deliberately put the phone on speaker. So, everyone heard Director Ma's words. Fang Jianhong's face was extremely ugly. How could this be? Chapter 303. Fang Jianhong was unwilling. He took the phone from Ma Haitao and bowed respectfully. Hello, Director Ma, I'm Jianhong. I'm with Haitao. I think you have some kind of misunderstanding about the child? Haitao is the victim. He was injured without doing anything and is now receiving treatment in the hospital. Is Director Ma free? I want to rush over and report to you in person. Director Fong. Director Ma was no stranger to the school leaders of the Ivy League. His attitude softened a little. Are you sure Ma Haitao didn't do anything? I know Haitao a little. If he did something wrong he would confess to us teachers. But this time he really felt wronged. His eyes are red. There was silence on the other end of the phone. Clearly Director Ma was moved by Fang Jianhong. What are you going to do? Director Ma asked. When the hospital's appraisal results are out, we want to send these medical records and the students' confessions to the education department, Fang Jianhong said. No matter what, we have to get justice for the students of our school. We can't let them suffer losses. The students' thoughts are the simplest and most innocent, but they have a strong sense of right and wrong. If they were wrong this time, it would have a profound impact on their lives. In order to convince Director Ma to stand on his side, Fang Jianhong even used some knowledge from education. If you don't help us get justice for your son, don't blame me when your son gives up on himself and goes down the wrong path. With Fang Jianhong's familiarity with Ma Haitao, this kid was already very crooked. His words would definitely come true. Director Ma naturally understood the meaning behind Fang Jianhong's words. He snorted and said, "Years of hard work can't withstand a small setback. Is there a problem with the teaching quality of the Ivy League school?" Fang Jianhong broke out in a cold sweat. He quickly tried to salvage the situation. "Director Ma, I'm just worried that this will happen. Haitao is your child and also my student. Who doesn't want him to get better and better? Don't you think so?" "I'll find out more about this," Director Ma said and hung up the phone. When Fang Jianhong returned the phone to Ma Haitao, he said with a strange expression, "Is someone pressuring your dad?" Ma Haitao had just called to talk about this matter, but he already knew about it and immediately said that he wanted to apologize. Which true god did they move? Lin Yubin said with a gloomy face, "Oppressing people with power, lawless and out of control. How could they do such a dirty thing? How can such a person be qualified to be a teacher?" Fang Jianhong glared at Lin Yubin, who hurriedly apologized and scolded Rosefinch for being shameless. Head Ma's name was Ma Wenxue. He wasn't the head of Huaqing's education department, but a deputy head who was ranked highly. Of course, with such a big Buddha in the education department, it was enough for Ma Haitao to do whatever he wanted in a high school. Ma Wenxue hung up the phone and felt a headache coming on. Although his immediate superior had just informed him that his son, Ma Haitao, should apologize to others and obtain their forgiveness, and he had verbally agreed to it, he still felt dissatisfied when he thought about it. His son was injured and hospitalized, and he still had to apologize to the person who hit him. If word of this got out, where would he, Ma Wenxue, put his face? Moreover, what Fang Jianhong said made sense. Ma Haitao was his biological son, after all, and if he got into a dead end because of this matter, he wouldn't be able to pull him back. Pa. He slammed his palm heavily on the table, then carried his teacup and walked to the head's office at the easternmost end of the corridor. Wang Wenhai was the head of the education department, and he was also the official who controlled this office. In the office, his words carried enormous weight, and Ma Wenxue didn't have the ability to wrestle with him. His subordinates often joked about Ma Wenshue's and Wang Wenhai's names, saying that one was Wenxue, and the other was Wenhai. From their names, it was obvious that Wenhai was older than Wenxue. What they said was the truth, and Ma Wenxue didn't even have the leeway to refute it. Of course, every time he heard such a comparison, he felt a prickling feeling of discomfort in his heart. Ma Wenxue knocked on the door and entered. Wang Wenhai was on the phone with someone. When he saw Ma Wenxue come in, he glanced at him with a strange expression and gestured for him to sit on the sofa and wait for a moment. Wang Wenhai hung up the phone and looked at Ma Wenxue with a smile, asking, "Wenxue, what's the matter? I know that you don't lack good tea here, so I brought the teacups just to ask for a cup of good tea to drink," Ma Wenxue said jokingly, deliberately trying to get closer to him. "Old Ma, do you still lack good tea in your own office? I think you're too stingy. You can't bear to drink your own good tea, so you always ask for mine," Wang Wenhai said, pretending to be angry. Ma Wenxue was shocked. Wang Wenhai said that he was too stingy. Could it be that he already knew why he was here? Some people said that the way of being an official had 4 words: be bold and careful. Ma Wenxue had been immersed in officialdom for many years, so he had some understanding of these 4 words. Be it his superior or his subordinates, every word they said had a deeper meaning. Was this "too stingy" just referring to Ma Wenshue's tea collection, or was it referring to something else? However, since he was here, he had to untie the knot in his heart. Otherwise, he would be scared off by Wang Wenhai with just one sentence and he would be looked down upon even more. Ma Wenxue said with a smile, "I've drunk the tea here and I feel that the tea in my office can't compare. I've been raised to be picky. Chief, you can't let me go back disappointed." Wang Wenhai sighed softly and said, "Are you here for your son's matter?" "Yes. To tell you the truth, I just called that kid and gave him a good scolding. I even said that I would break his legs when I got back. However, Fang Jian, the school's director, took the phone and reprimanded me. He said that I had wronged the kid this time. That kid is usually as stubborn as a cow, but today he actually knew to wipe his tears." Director Fang Jian also said that they would wait for the doctor's appraisal results to come out, and then send the students' confessions and medical records to the education department. At that time, things would get out of hand. Ma Wenxue looked at Wang Wenhai sincerely and said, I'm here to ask the chief how this matter should be handled. A hint of mockery appeared at the corner of Wang Wenhai's mouth, but it disappeared in an instant. Wang Wenhai looked at Ma Wenxue and said, Wenxue, look at something first. As he spoke, he took out his mobile phone and sent a video to Ma Wenxue's mobile phone. As soon as Ma Wenhai opened the video, the sound of his son Ma Haitao, cursing like an unscrupulous hooligan. If he couldn't scold him, he would beat him. If he couldn't beat him, he would cry. Then he would lie on the ground and pretend to be dead. The content was simply unbearable to look at. Ma Wenxue had never thought that his obedient and sensible son would have such a side to him. Ma Wenxue felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He knew that he had been completely tricked by those bastards. The people over there had such evidence in their hands, and they could also send it to Wang Wenhai's book. This matter would not be easy to resolve. Wang Wenhai looked at Ma Wenxue and said, Did you see it clearly? Chief, I was deceived by that bastard, Ma Wenxue said in a dry voice. Old Ma, originally, for your sake and for the sake of the education department, they were prepared to turn this matter into a small one. This video will end here with me. That's why I called you and asked you to tell Haitao to apologize to the others, and this matter would be over. But, since you feel that your son has been wronged and the Ivy League wants to seek justice for their student, it seems like we can't suppress it anymore. I'll leave this matter to you, Wang Wenhai said. I'll leave it to you. I believe that you will definitely be able to handle this matter impartially. I will. I will definitely handle this matter impartially. I will not be biased just because one of them is my son, Ma Wenxue said as he nodded solemnly. He felt extremely uncomfortable in his heart. He knew that his son was going to be unlucky and the Ivy League was going to be unlucky too. If they weren't unlucky, then he would be the unlucky one. What a scam, he cried miserably in his heart. When Fang Yen brought a group of students downstairs, he happened to bump into Baldy, who had just parked his car and was running upstairs. Baldy saw Fang Yen and asked, Has the matter been resolved? Not yet, Fang Yen said. Then why did he leave? Not only was Baldy confused, but even Huang Haoren and the others felt that it was strange. Mr. Fang had angered the Ivy League's dean Fang Jianhong to such an extent. Presumably they wouldn't just let it go, right? Someone will help me resolve it, Fang Yen said with a smile. He turned to look at Huang Haoren and the others and said, I won't ask you to write a reflection letter, so you probably won't feel that you've done anything wrong. I want you to write down the course of events and then think about whether there's a better way to resolve the problem. I have a language class tomorrow afternoon, and I'll look for you at that time to get your answers. All right, Mr. Fang, the students replied. Fang Yen looked at Baldy and said, Let's go. Drive me back. The students all laughed and said, Mr. Fang, you came here in Baldy's battery-powered car? These guys all knew that Baldy's car was a battery-powered car. Only I have too high expectations of him. Just as Baldy drove Fang Yen to the entrance of the hospital, a white BMW stopped in front of them. Tang Qing opened the door and got out of the car. He looked at Fang Yen, who was sitting in the back seat of the battery-powered car, with a smile. Fang Yen jumped out of the battery-powered car, looked at Tang Qing and scolded, You bastard, you still dare to run over to see me? You hurt someone and ran away. Don't you have any shame? Who are you going to let clean up after you? Stop scolding, I know you're not angry, Tang Qing said jokingly. Fang Yen was very depressed. He felt that he had been completely seen through by these students. Chapter 304. Fang Yen got into Tang Qing's BMW, and the driver went out to smoke, leaving the space to the teacher and the student. Fang Yen looked at Tang Qing and said, Is the problem solved? If not, how would I dare to come to see you? Tang Qing said with a smile. I was the one who beat them up. I can't just leave Huang Haoren and the others there to clean up my mess. Of course, I guess that Huang Haoren would definitely call you. He is your absolute confidant. He can't hide anything from you. How far are you going to go? Fang Yen asked. Fang Yen was a teacher and he had a deep understanding of his students. Tang Qing was a talented and arrogant person. Moreover, Fang Yen knew that Tang Qing and Qin Yitian had always had a good relationship. Qin Yitian had such a shocking background. How bad could Tang Qing be? Moreover, it was precisely because of Tang Qing's extreme pride that he would take responsibility for what he did. He would never push the responsibility to others. Knowing that Tang Qing was involved, Fang Yen was no longer worried that this matter could not be solved. He also did not worry that the result of this matter would be unfavorable to them. No matter who dealt with this matter, in the end, they would have to give face to the Tang family. If the Tang family spoke, The reason why Fang Yen rushed here was that he was worried that his students would be hurt. However, after confirming that the students were not hurt, he was worried that the result of this matter would be unfair. Of course, this unfair and unjust mainly referred to the students of the Ivy League. You see, there are such selfless men in the world. He knew the power of the Tang family. He knew that if the Tang family spoke, even if Tangqing really hit people without reason, this matter could only be left unsettled. However, Fang Yen did not want to see this result. He hoped that his students could understand the meaning of right and wrong. He hoped that his students would know the big picture. He hoped that his students would not be infected with the bad atmosphere of society. I was wrong, I apologize. If you are wrong, you will bear the consequences. Using one's power to oppress others was the worst thing to do. If they succeeded this time, they wouldn't think about right or wrong when they encountered similar situations in the future. Instead, they would think about who could help solve the problem. Students were the hope of the future of society. If the hope of the future was all like this, then where was the hope? Fang Yen was willing to discuss with the teachers and leaders of the Ivy League school to determine the nature of this fight. In the end, it was wrong for students to fight. He loved his students, loved the children of Class 9, but he would not indulge them too much. However, the performance of the Ivy League was really disappointing. This was also the reason why Fang Yen left angrily and allowed the situation to develop naturally. He knew that there was no way he could reason with Director Fang, who was full of power, and Teacher Lin, who scolded him without asking about the cause and effect. Since you don't want to accept my kindness, then I'll treat you like a fart. He could do whatever he wanted with it. That depends on what they choose. Tangqing smiled proudly. Anyway, I've done it politely and appropriately. If they want to turn a big problem into a small one, I can let them go. I'm a low-profile person. I don't want to cause a storm in the city and let others see me as a joke. How big is a small problem? To tell you the truth, I feel very embarrassed to hit them, but if they don't know what's good for them, then they can only blame it on their bad luck. I've already prepared a feast for them. Tangqing looked at Fang Yen and said, however, Mr. Fang came out so quickly. It means that the old guys over there are not easy to talk to, right? The Ivy League has a bigger influence in the education circle of Huaqing than Rosefinch, so they have developed the bad habit of looking down on others even though they're the best in the world. This time I'll teach them a lesson. What did you do? Fang Yen asked. I just asked someone to help me take a video of them arrogantly scolding people and taking the initiative to hit people. Tangqing smiled slyly. Didn't you teach us? If the enemy doesn't move, we move first. Once we've identified our enemy, we have to think of a way to make ourselves invincible. This is what I taught you. Absolutely. Using a phone to take pictures again. Isn't this too lame? Why don't you use such a useful technique? Tangqing asked. Those idiots still think they have the upper hand, but they don't know that we've been guiding them to do stupid things. Huang Haoren is the most cunning. He keeps showing weakness, but when he does, he shows his unyielding heroic spirit. They're about to go crazy with anger. Who else should they hit if not him? They wanted to beat up Huang Haoren, but you stood out to turn the tide and beat them down? That's because they're not strong enough. I can't do anything about it. I know your ability. There's probably no one in the entire student world of Huaqing who's your opponent. Fang Yen looked at Tangqing and said, try not to use your fists to solve problems in the future. You're a student after all. Actually, I don't want to either, Tangqing said. But Mr. Fang has already set an example. I have no reason not to follow the teacher's example. Seeing Fang Yan's murderous gaze, Tangqing said casually, Mr. Fang, why didn't you shout in class about such a big event like the battle between you and the Japanese sword god? If you did, I could have brought my classmates to pull up banners and shout slogans for you. Unfortunately, I found out too late. I didn't see Mr. Fang's heroic appearance when he defeated the Japanese sword god. What a pity. Get lost, Fang Yen said angrily. This is my car. Fang Yen was stunned. He opened the door and was about to get out. Mr. Fang, Qini Tian, is she okay? Tangqing asked from behind. Fang Yan's body stiffened. He said without turning his head, I don't know. Forget it, I won't ask. I hope she's fine. Tangqing sighed softly. He sat back in the back seat of Baldy's electric scooter and let Baldy pull him through the noisy crowd. He saw the numbness and exhaustion on other people's faces, and they could also see the pain and sadness in his eyes. They were all people with stories. Jiang Qin looked really happy. She had been smiling since the moment she saw Fang Yen. She smiled and said to Fang Yen, Mr. Fang, are we going to Zhuangyuan Street or Friendship Square? She smiled and said to Fang Yen, Mr. Fang, Can you treat me to a bowl of fish balls? I like the fish balls here the most. She smiled and said to Fang Yan, Mr. Fang, why aren't you talking? Come, smile. She kept talking, kept walking and kept trying all kinds of snacks. Of course, because she was too lively, Fang Yan was dragged by her to talk, walk and eat snacks. Jiang Qin held a skewer of grilled squid in her left hand and a skewer of roasted corn in her right hand. She said with a face full of happiness, Mr. Fang, I think this kind of life is the happiest. Do you think I'm a good for nothing? Jiang Qin didn't know that when she stood on the world stage with a Gu Zheng in her arms and carried forward Wuxia's classical music to the world, and was called the moon goddess by humans, what she missed the most was this kind of carefree civilian life with grilled squid in one hand and tender corn in the other. Fang Yan looked at Jiang Qin and said with a smile, It doesn't matter if you're successful or not. It's important to find happiness. If you think this is good, then pursue and enjoy this kind of life. No one said that you have to have a bright future. That's not feasible. Since I promised to promote our Wuxia's classical music with Sister Xia, I will definitely work hard for this goal. I've read a lot of information recently. Sister Xia's worries are indeed necessary and we really need to awaken. It's good that you can persevere, Fang Yan said. You've been busy eating along the way. Have you thought about what gifts to buy for your parents? Mr. Fang, do you have any good recommendations? Your dad likes to drink, but there's no point in buying wine. It's better to buy a watch. Fang Yan put forward his suggestion seriously. He promised Jiang Qin to come over and help her choose a gift, so he had to fulfill his responsibility. Jiang Qin was also Fang Yan's teacher. He was happy to see his student show his love in front of his own father, not his godfather. Jiang Qin's eyes lit up and said, Yes. I'll buy a watch for my dad. Who says a butcher can't wear a watch? A butcher's daughter must let her father wear a watch. After confirming his father's gift, Jiang Qin took Fang Yan's hand and ran to the friendship building next to them. There were many brand counters there, including mid-range and high-end brands. Fang Yan and Jiang Qin discussed for a while and prepared to buy a mid-range brand watch worth a few thousand yuan. In this case, even if Jiang Dai knew the value of the watch, he would still be willing to wear it. If he bought a watch worth tens of thousands of yuan, Jiang Dai would definitely hide it, so it would lose the meaning of buying a watch. Fang Yan let Jiang Qin pick the watch first and he walked to the restroom of the mall. He came to the restroom and was about to unzip the water when his hand suddenly stopped. He saw a frog. A green-skinned frog the size of a palm was squatting in the urinal, staring at him with wide eyes. It did not say a word, just like a plastic toy. However, Fang Yan knew very well that it was indeed a frog, a living frog. Fang Yan could see its eyes moving, could see its puffed cheeks moving up and down, could see its mouth opening and closing. Seeing a green frog in a urinal in a big city. Didn't this scene look very strange? If it were you, how would you deal with it? Fang Yan held his breath, and a strong heat flow poured over the frog's head. Croak, 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 the frog cried fiercely. Chapter 305. Fang Yan returned to the watch counter. Jiang Qin held up a watch with a brown leather chain and said to Fang Yan, Mr. Fang, does this watch look good? The lady at the counter was amused and said, You two are really interesting. A girl calling her boyfriend a teacher, I've never heard of it before. Fang Yan quickly explained, I'm really a teacher and she's my student. The lady at the counter smiled, but the way she looked at Fang Yan was a little strange. What teacher would bring his student to buy a watch? Moreover, their relationship didn't look like a teacher-student relationship. If it was really a teacher-student relationship, it proved that this guy was really a beast. He wouldn't even let go of his own student. She's here to buy a gift for her father, and I'm here to help with the reference, Fang Yan explained honestly. He was very afraid that others would misunderstand. Jiang Qin smiled and didn't care. He pulled Fang Yan's wrist over and put the watch on Fang Yan's wrist. He looked at it from left to right and said, It looks good. It gives people a very elegant feeling when wearing it. Fang Yan took off the watch and said, This one doesn't suit him. Your dad's wrist is much thicker than mine, and the leather chain doesn't suit him very well. You can choose a watch with an iron chain for him. It's better if it's rougher. I know. Jiang Qin nodded seriously. I've already chosen it. As he said that, he raised another watch on the box on the counter and said, This is the one I bought for my dad. That watch had an iron chain, the dial was bigger and the chain was longer. It was indeed suitable for the obese Jiang Dai. Fang Yan nodded and said, This one is not bad. Your dad will probably like it. What about this one? Do you think it looks good? Jiang Qin asked. This one? Fang Yin took off the watch in his hand and put it on the counter. He said, "One is enough. Why did you buy so many?" "Sir, this lady specially chose this one for you. She said you will definitely like it," the lady at the counter said with a smile. By selling 2 watches at once, she had completed her business for the day ahead of schedule. The more sales they made, the more commission they got. "Nonsense," Fang Yin refused. "I don't need you to buy me a watch." "But I have already bought it," Jiang Qin said aggrievedly and put the watch on Fang Yan's wrist again. "Yes, sir. This lady has already paid for both watches," the receptionist said. She thought to herself that this man was really insensitive. A girl paid her own money to buy a watch for a guy, but the guy didn't appreciate it. This kind of guy was really blind. If it were me, I definitely wouldn't marry such a blockhead. Fang Yin looked at Jiang Qin and said with a serious expression, "Jiang Qin, I know you mean well. But you're still a student and there's a lot of money to be spent. Shall we return this watch? You don't have much money, and you still have to buy a present for your mother, right? I'm just your teacher. I really don't need you to buy me such an expensive present." Fang Yin looked at the price tag. Each watch was worth more than 8,000 yuan. That was close to 20,000 yuan in total. For a student who was still studying, this was indeed not a small amount of money. "I've already chosen my mother's present," Jiang Qin said angrily. "Who said I don't have money? Do you know how much Sister Xia Tian paid me in Yuan Lin this time? Although I'm still a student, I've already started to make money. Sister Xia Tian said that she'll give us more opportunities to be on camera. As long as we're on camera or participate in performances, we'll get money. In the future, I'll make more money than my dad every year. Besides, why can't you accept my present? You gave me tuition but you never charged me for it. If you didn't know Sister Xia Tian, how could Yuan Lin and I have the chance to become Sister Xia Tian students?" Yuan Lin also kept saying that she wanted to give you a present. "I don't care, I've already bought it. If you don't accept it, then I'll..." Jiang Qin raised the watch in his hand and said with red eyes, "If you don't accept it, I'll smash it. Who wants to keep a gift that can't be given out?" Fang Yin sighed softly, took the watch from Jiang Qin's hand and said, "Okay. Then I'll accept this present for the time being. Thank you, Jiang Qin." Jiang Qin smiled and said, "You're welcome, Mr. Fang." Jiang Qin helped put the watch on Fang Yan's wrist. He looked left and right and said, "It's really nice. You really have good taste. Moreover, this is the first gift I've bought with money. It's so meaningful." Fang Yan's heart was heavy. Jiang Qin used the money he earned for the first time to buy gifts for his parents and himself. How could he bear such love? Fang Yin said with a smile, "You gave me a present. I'll treat you to dinner." "Okay. I want to eat steak." "No problem," Fang Yin said. When the staff brought the warranty card and invoice, Fang Yin and Jiang Qin turned and walked to the 4th floor of the mall. That floor was a food court with many restaurants to choose from. "What gift did you choose for Sister Li?" Fang Yin asked curiously. "Travel." Jiang Qin smiled proudly. "My mother has worked hard all her life. She used to earn pocket money by setting up a stall to support my studies. She never had a chance to go out. If I go back to Yanjing tomorrow, my mother will be reluctant. She will cry when I leave. So, I secretly booked a plane ticket for her and then I will take her to Yanjing. She can accompany me and not be separated so quickly. She can also enjoy the scenery of Yanjing. Am I very smart?" Fang Yin touched Jiang Qin's head dotingly and said, "That's a good idea. Sister Li has worked hard all her life. When you make money in the future, let her enjoy a good life." "Of course." Jiang Qin turned her head away unwillingly. She didn't like Fang Yin touching her head. She felt like a little kid. Jiang Qin chose a French restaurant, and the two of them found a table by the window. The waiter brought the lemonade and menu. Jiang Qin took the menu skillfully and ordered. Not only did she order her own, but she also ordered one for Fang Yin that suited Fang Yan's taste. This made Fang Yin very satisfied. "Mr. Fang, I know your family is in Yanjing, right?" "Sort of," Fang Yin said. Fang Yan's home was in Yanjing, but it was still a distance from Yanjing City. It was closer to Tianjin City. "In a month, the students will have their holidays. Are you going back to Yanjing at that time?" Jiang Qin asked slyly. Fang Yin looked at Jiang Qin and said, "What evil idea do you have now? When you go back to Yanjing, we will also have our holidays. Yuan Lin and I want to walk around Yanjing. Can you be our tour guide?" Fang Yin thought about it and said, "I'll decide then. I have a lot of things to deal with after the holidays." Okay. Because Fang Yin didn't agree immediately, Jiang Qin was a little disappointed. But she knew that Fang Yen was soft-hearted. As long as she could find a chance to beg again, he would definitely agree. It would be best if Yuan Lin, that little troublemaker, could come along as well. Yuan Lin's presence could increase the success rate, but Jiang Qin was a little unwilling. She was really conflicted. When Jiang Qin was about to drink the lemonade on the table, Fang Yen suddenly stopped her and said, "Don't move." "What's wrong?" Jiang Qin looked at Fang Yen and asked. Fang Yen took the cup from Jiang Qin and stared coldly at a red filament in the cup. If one didn't look carefully, it would be easy to mistake the red filament for the fiber in the lemon. But under Fang Yan's gaze, he could see the filament moving up and down, left and right. It was alive. Red thread snake. It could enter the human body through liquids and various carriers, and then grow and multiply in the human stomach. Finally, the densely packed red thread snake would pierce through the stomach, skin and flesh, and then crawl out of the skin. At that time, half of its body would be in the flesh and the other half would be outside. At first glance, it would look like its body was stained with countless red threads. The threads were floating in the wind, but in fact the red thread snake was shaking its head. This was the strangest and cruelest way to die. Unclean? Jiang Qin also moved his little head over, looked at it carefully and asked, "What's inside?" "Nothing," Fang Yen said with a smile. He took the initiative to take Jiang Qin's hand and said, "Let's go to another restaurant." "Why do you want to change?" Jiang Qin asked. But seeing Fang Yan's big hand holding his little hand, the voice of resistance immediately became much smaller and he said, "Mr. Fang, are you taking me to eat delicious food?" "Yes," Fang Yan said. They walked to the busy street and bought some snacks at the roadside shops. Fang Yan held a bowl of beef meatballs and said, "Didn't you say that this is the happiest life?" Jiang Qin pouted and said, "Stingy." Fang Yan saw a park in front of them, and there was a man-made lake in the middle of the park. There were many couples rowing in the middle of the lake, so he said to Jiang Qin, "Do you want to take a boat?" Jiang Qin suddenly became interested and said happily, "Okay. Let's go rowing." So the two walked over, rented a small boat and rowed to the center of the lake. Folk songs are like the spring river, not afraid of dangerous shoals and many bends. Jiang Qin was in a good mood and she took the initiative to sing a folk song. Her voice was sweet and crisp with a young girl's coquettishness, and it attracted many cheers from the surrounding people. Fang Yen smiled and clapped, and he really enjoyed Jiang Qin's singing. His eyes, however, took in all the movements in the middle of the lake. In the shadow of the woods by the shore, a pair of triangular eyes stared fiercely at the boat in the middle of the lake. "Where there is water is my kingdom. You are courting death." The triangular eyes had a ferocious smile on his face. Chapter 306. The artificial lake in the center of Tianhu Park was also known as the Lover's Lake because many couples would row boats in the middle of the lake and pledge their love. That was how it got its name. Of course, not only couples but parents would also bring their children here to play during holidays. After Jiang Qin finished singing the song "Mountains and Rivers Are Like Spring Water," Fang Yen had already rowed the boat to a remote area far away from the crowd. Jiang Qin looked around and said with a blushing face, "Mr. Fang, why did you row the boat here? Is there any good scenic spot here?" "Because it's dangerous here," Fang Yen said. "Dangerous?" Jiang Qin's heart was beating fast. The middle of the lake was so lively, but Mr. Fang deliberately didn't go there and deliberately rowed the boat to this oblique angle. Did he want to? What should I do? Should I pretend to accept or pretend to be reserved and push him aside? But if I do that, will he not like me anymore? What if he gets angry? He said it was dangerous here, so it meant that he must want to do something to me. He said it so clearly, should I do something in response? The young girl's heart was budding and she didn't even know what love was. She just saw some cliché scenes from books and TV, and then put herself into the story. This kind of perturbed and sweet feeling was something they had never experienced before. "Yes. It's very dangerous," Fang Yen said. Fang Yan's expression was serious, and his eyes swept around coldly. He said, "Just now in the restroom of the mall, I saw a frog in the urinal." "Ah?" Jiang Qin exclaimed. "Isn't that too cute? Where's the frog?" "I trampled it to death," Fang Yen said in a deep voice. "When we were eating in a French restaurant, the waiter served us a glass of lemonade with a rare little snake called the red viper. If we drank that glass of lemonade, those little snakes would suck our stomach blood and reproduce in our stomachs." "There's a snake?" Jiang Qin's eyes widened. Until then she finally realized that something was wrong. She was in a really dangerous situation, but this danger was not brought by Fang Yen. Yes, there are snakes. Fang Yan nodded. I know a very powerful person. He is known as the Xiangxi Snake Monarch. I've been sending people to look for his whereabouts. Obviously, he's not going to let me go so easily. Although I don't know how the hatred between the two of us started. Today is really not a good day to meet him. At the very least, I should send you back first. However, I know that this kind of person tends to go to extremes. If I send you back, you and your family may suffer. He has been following us, and I can't guarantee that he won't do anything to your family. So you used us as bait? Jiang Qin asked. She was naturally intelligent, and Fang Yan had already said it so clearly. How could she still not understand? Yes. Fang Yan nodded. He is a big monster. He can use all kinds of poisonous snakes and fierce beasts. The frogs in the toilet, the red-line snakes in the cup, and even a group of poisonous snakes and scorpions might crawl out from under the blankets when we were lying on the bed. He hid in the dark and gave commands remotely, making it impossible for us to defend against these killer moves. He can try 100 times, but if we get hit once, everything will be over. There was one more thing that Fang Yan didn't mention. Whether it was the poisonous frogs or the poisonous snakes, or the upcoming assassination, the Snake Lord was trying to force her to abdicate. If a person followed you like gangrene, plotted against you, then you would not be able to escape. Be on your guard when you eat, be on your guard when you sleep, be on your guard when you open your eyes, and be on your guard when you close your eyes. It was easy for a person to become mentally and physically exhausted when living in a state where every bush and tree was an enemy. This would shake Fang Yan's indifferent state of mind. If the tranquil state of mind was damaged, the heart of Taiji would be covered in dust. No Tao seeker would be willing to face the fact that their cultivation did not advance and instead regressed. At that time, as long as Fang Yan made a small mistake, the Snake Lord would attack and kill Fang Yan. The Snake Lord could wait, but Fang Yan couldn't. Fang Yan had the ability to protect himself, but what about the people around him? What about his students? Fang Yan's plan to lure the enemy was to put himself in a desperate situation. He knew that he was taking a great risk by doing this. He even took the initiative to pull the battle line to the lake, where the Snake Lord was best at fighting. The Snake Lord was king when encountering the water. He believed that the Snake Lord would not be able to resist such a temptation. He would not be able to resist. Jiang Qin sat down quietly, looked at Fang Yan and asked, "What can I help you with?" "You don't have to do anything," Fang Yan said gently. "Just sit there quietly. No matter what you see, don't panic. I will do my best to protect you. As long as I'm alive, you will be alive as well." There was something else that Fang Yan didn't say. If he died, Jiang Qin would probably not be able to survive either. But this was the only choice. It was also the best choice. He was confident in himself. "I believe in you," Jiang Qin said. "I'm not afraid at all. I know that you will protect me anyway." Not only was she not afraid, but she even took out 2 pieces of gum from her bag. She forced one into Fang Yan's mouth and kept the other in her mouth. She looked around but didn't see anything unusual. "He's here," Fang Yan said. As soon as Fang Yan said that, the calm surface of the lake began to ripple. At first, it was only a slight tremble like water being blown by the wind. But soon, the waves began to roll like boiling water towards the boat that Fang Yan was on. Whoosh, the loud sound of water could be heard. Then, countless toads jumped up from the bottom of the water. Because there were too many of them and they were too densely packed together, they looked like an ugly monster that had emerged from the bottom of the water. The poison on the toads' bodies wasn't brown, but dark red. It was as if they had acne that was about to mature. Their eyes weren't black, but dark red. They didn't scream and their bodies looked stiff when they jumped. Zombie toads. They fed the toads with corpse energy and let these toads absorb the corpse poison. In the end, they became the most evil and ferocious poisonous creatures in the world. The difference between zombie toads and other poisonous snakes was that they could be bred in batches. They only needed to use ordinary toads as raw materials and let them live in the land of extreme negative energy for 3 years. In order to deal with Fang Yan, Snake Lord used all the zombie toads he brought out. The zombie toads were controlled by Snake Lord. One by one, they pounced towards Fang Yan and Jiang Qin on the boat. Jiang Qin was so scared that her face turned pale. She didn't even know that she had swallowed her gum. She had promised Mr. Fang that she wouldn't panic no matter what happened. But these toads were too ugly and disgusting. Although they hadn't bitten her yet, Jiang Qin already had goosebumps all over her body. Fang Yan's face was dark, and his eyes were as sharp as daggers. The heart of Tai Chi was fully activated, and the Tai Chi realm instantly appeared. Then everything around him appeared in his mind. The toad's wide-open mouth, the bulging red pustules on its body, the water droplets on its body when it jumped, the dead leaves rippling in the middle of the lake, and the white stripe running away in a panic, wagging its tail, Jiang Qin jumped into Fang Yan's arms. Fang Yan hugged Jiang Qin with one hand and slapped the surface of the lake with the other. The clouds were calm, but the clouds were surging. Cloud expelling palm. Boom, it was as if a miniature bomb had been dropped on the bottom of the lake. The water rippled more than 10 feet high, and a human wall appeared out of thin air, blocking the zombie toads. What was more shocking was that there was a vacuum between the boat and the water wall. The lake water was swept up by Fang Yan's palm, and the black silt was exposed. There was also a small fish jumping and struggling in the silt in fear. It couldn't understand why all the water on its head had suddenly disappeared. The zombie toads were blocked by the water wall, but they continued to charge towards Fang Yan. Bang bang bang, the sound of knocking could be heard incessantly. The curtain of water was like a solid wall. The toads charged forward again and again, but one by one they fell into the water. Because of this, the boat that Fang Yan was in was like an arrow that had been released from a bow, and it flew away. When the boat was far away, the water curtain came crashing down and covered the silt again. The zombie toads regained their freedom, and once again chased after Fang Yan's boat. Clap, 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 they jumped stiffly and the ones below pushed against the ones above, while the ones above jumped higher and further towards Fang Yan's boat. When they got close, Fang Yan struck out with his palm again. Boom, the toads were blocked by the water wall again. This time it didn't just block them. The water wall turned into a water dragon, sweeping towards them. Roar, wherever the water dragon passed, the toads all disappeared. When the water dragon disappeared, they popped their heads out of the water in a daze, not understanding how they got here. It was also when Fang Yan struck again that the Snake Lord appeared. It leaped out of the water at the bow of the ship and clawed at Fang Yan's head. He wore a black steel finger glove on his right hand, and each finger glove was smeared with the Snake Lord's blood. The snake blood couldn't be washed away by the wind, and it could exist for hundreds of years. His triangular eyes flashed with a fierce light, and the smile on his face was so bright. The extreme contrast made people's hearts palpitate. He knew that he had succeeded. After guarding for so many days, he succeeded overnight. He wanted to crack open Fang Yan's skull and carve out 5 holes on the top of his skull. Then he would use them to raise zombies. Only a zombie that had eaten a human's brain could become a ghost king. Yes, he was currently lacking an intelligent ghost king. Chapter 307. After a punch was thrown, one needed to retract it and accumulate strength again. That way the next punch would have the same amount of strength. The same went for human strength. The most dangerous state was the blank period when one's old strength had been exhausted and new strength had not been generated. That was when the human body's defense was at its weakest. If one could find this point, even someone who was far weaker than oneself could take the opportunity to win. The Snake Lord had been lurking under the water for a long time. First, he attacked Fang Yan with the zombie toad. When Fang Yan counterattacked with his palm, he finally found an opportunity to attack. Since he was called the Snake Lord, he was naturally good at swimming. He was more carefree in the water than on land. When he jumped out from the bottom of the lake, he barely brought up any water droplets, nor did he make any sound. Like a water ghost, he suddenly emerged from the water without a sound, catching people off guard. Timing, location, and people. The Snake Lord thought that he had the upper hand, and he was confident that he could scratch Fang Yan's skull with one claw. However, at this moment, something surprising happened. Fang Yan suddenly turned around with a gratified and sarcastic smile on his face. "You finally came out? You finally came out?" This was a conspiracy, a trap. The Snake Lord knew better than anyone else. Fang Yan had long known of his existence, and he had long known that Fang Yan knew of his existence. He knew that he was not deceived. When Fang Yan discovered his existence, he still dragged the battlefield to the center of the lake to lure him out to fight to the death. Fang Yan thought that he could get rid of the Snake Lord by inviting him into the lake, but the Snake Lord thought that he was the king who could win in the end. When the Tao rises 1 foot and the devil rises 10, who will attain the Tao? Who could become a demon? Now, his claws were about to pierce through his scalp and pierce through his skull. What could he do? Crack. The Snake Lord's claws could not reach out. There was a big hand on his arm. That hand grasped the major acupuncture points on his arm, such as Zhigo, Huizong, and Lao, numbing his body and making him unable to move. His leaping body was still suspended in the air. However, that was not because his ability to stay in the air was amazing, but because Fang Yan had lifted him up in the air. His body was in the hands of Fang Yan, and his life was also in the hands of Fang Yan. He couldn't believe his own eyes. Fang Yan was obviously exhausted, and his body didn't even have time to turn around. How did he grab his wrist first? The Snake Lord did not know that after the Taiji heart was unleashed, his speed in the Taiji realm was not worth mentioning in Fang Yan's eyes. Intercepting his attack was not a difficult task. The Snake Lord's expression changed unpredictably. In the end, it became as fierce as ever. How did you do it? Snake Lord asked in a hoarse voice. Looking at the pair of triangular eyes and the patches of skin on his face that looked like snake scales, Fang Yan felt nauseous. The poison attacked his heart and seeped into his body. His body actually had some characteristics of a poisonous snake. As a Libra who loved beauty and had high taste, he really couldn't stand a human who looked like this. I wanted to do it and I did it, Fang Yan said with a smile. Crack! Fang Yan used his strength and crushed one of Snake Lord's arms. This monster's body was full of poison, and he could use those strange poisons. Fang Yan didn't want to give him any chance to fight back. Fang Yan didn't want something stupid like failing in an easy task to happen to him. Ah, Snake Lord screamed. He was clearly in so much pain that his facial features were scrunched up, but there was a cruel smile in his eyes. When he opened his mouth, a stream of red blood sprayed toward Fang Yan's face. Puff! Snake Lord's most poisonous skill was not his killing technique, but his poisonous fangs and poisonous blood. The poisonous blood stained his body and rotted his skin and flesh. Fang Yan's large hand was still grabbing onto one of the Snake Lord's arms and lifting him into the air. The two of them were very close. When he spat out a mouthful of poisonous blood, the Snake Lord opened his mouth and laughed loudly. Close combat was his forte. Using one of his arms to exchange for Fang Yan's life was a worthwhile trade. This was his variation. A backup move when a sneak attack failed. Who would have thought that his lips could be used as a spear and his blood could be used as a sword? Fang Yan had a contemptuous smile on his face. Then he retracted his arm and brought the Snake Lord's body back with him. Then, while the Snake Lord racked his brains and could not figure out what was going on, the Snake Lord stood in front of Fang Yan. In other words, Fang Yan used Snake Lord's body to block his own poisonous blood. The red poisonous blood splattered on Snake Lord's body. The skin that was exposed outside his clothes was rotting and falling off at a speed visible to the naked eye. His pale skin turned into black spots. The poisonous blood actually burned his skin red. From this, it could be seen that the poisonous blood was extremely poisonous. Snake Lord's body trembled in pain, but his brain did not seem to be aware of any of this. He stared blankly at the dense holes that had just appeared on his body. His eyes were full of fear and confusion. Is this magic? Of course this was not magic. This was the heart of Tai Chi. Fang Yan's speed was faster than Snake Lord's. In the Tai Chi realm he was the master of everything. When Snake Lord bit his fangs and tongue, Fang Yan guessed what he wanted to do. When he sprayed out the venom mixed with blood and fangs, Fang Yan had already lifted his body back and used it as a shield. However, Fang Yan's speed was so fast that even the person himself did not realize it. When Snake Lord's eyes and consciousness deceived him, when he thought that he was only being lifted in the air by Fang Yan, his body was actually already in front of Fang Yan. Among the supreme beings in the world, only speed could not be defeated. When one's speed reached an extreme, it would give off a magical feeling. This was also the reason why Snake Lord misunderstood that what Fang Yan used was a magic trick. Slap. Fang Yan threw Snake Lord, who had completely lost the ability to resist, on the deck, stepped on his neck and said with a smile, "This is not magic, it's Kung Fu. Wuxia Kung Fu. You have been hiding in the snake cave of Xiangxi for too long. You must not know much about the real Wuxia Kung Fu, right?" Snake Lord's eyes turned scarlet and he said with hatred, "Will you kill me?" "Of course," Fang Yan said frankly. "I don't like to be at a disadvantage. If you scold me I will scold you back. If you slap me I will slap you back. You tried to assassinate me twice but I can't kill you twice. I still let you take advantage of me." At the end of his words, Fang Yan sighed softly. There was a touch of sadness and regret in Snake Lord's eyes, and he said with an incomprehensible expression, "What if I make a deal with you?" "Deal?" Fang Yan looked at Snake Lord with a playful look and said, "What deal?" "You kill me but it means nothing to you," Snake Lord said. "You don't even know why I want to kill you." "That's right," Fang Yan said. "But sometimes, you don't need to understand the cause and effect of everything so clearly. You wanted to kill me but I killed you, isn't that more concise and clear? If you have the chance to kill me and I say I want to make a deal with you, will you agree?" If you won't agree, why do you think I will? Isn't this too unfair to me? Why is your money valuable but my life can be used for a deal? Fang Yan's words were so reasonable that Snake Lord was stunned for a long time, and he was speechless. Snake Lord lay there stiffly, waiting for Fang Yan to break his neck with his foot. His honesty made Fang Yan a bit hesitant. He stepped on Snake Lord's neck with his foot and said, "Tell me about your deal, we're both free anyways." This was a park and this was the artificial lake of the park. Snake Lord could kill and burn without restraint, but Fang Yan couldn't. Because of that, Fang Yan said that they still had some time. Snake Lord's eyes showed a bit more hope and said, "In order to save my sister, they forced me to kill you. They were too hurried and I didn't have any time to rest. Even though I was already heavily injured." "Who are they?" "I don't know. I only know that they were very powerful. I couldn't resist at all. I didn't even know how to resist. They easily took my sister away and said that as long as I killed you they would let her go," Snake Lord explained with his extremely uncomfortable voice. "I wanted to save my sister, that's why I was in such a hurry to kill you. The first time on Shisha Mountain when I was about to succeed, an old Taoist ruined my plan. This time I failed again. I knew that as long as I died they would kill my sister. Only if I lived could my sister live. If I died my sister would also die." "Your sister?" Fang Yan stared at Snake Lord's triangular eyes and thought, what kind of person is this guy's sister? "Yes. She's the only family I have in this world." Snake Lord's expression became gentle. A rare hint of affection that shouldn't have appeared on his face appeared in his eyes. "She's the only one who doesn't despise me for being a monster, the Snake Lord that everyone fears. She's the only family I have in this world. And the only one who's willing to listen to me." Fang Yan actually felt a bit of sympathy for him. This guy was really pitiful. Because of his ugly appearance, he was probably a freak in other people's eyes since the day he was born. His parents despised him, his companions feared him, and no one wanted to be friends with him or even get close to him. He could only talk to flowers, grass, and every tree in his forest. Luckily he had a sister. She didn't want him to look ugly, she didn't despise him for being with snakes, she was willing to talk to him, and even sang him a not-so-pleasant mountain song. That was his life, a treasure that he swore to protect with his life. Chapter 308. The Snake Lord's life was even more pitiful than Fang Yan had imagined. He didn't even know who his parents were. He had been living in the village's welfare home for as long as he could remember. There were many children in the welfare home. Most of them were abandoned by their parents because they had all kinds of problems like him. It was only when he was there that he didn't encounter discrimination and ridicule, at least not from his peers. However, they had to be beaten up by the director. The director was a fat middle-aged woman. When there were outsiders, she would talk to them with a kind face. Her voice was clear and her plump face was full of smiles. She would even personally help them wipe the rice off the corners of their mouths. However, when those kind donors or university students who used their spare time to show their love left, she would change into a different person. She would either beat them or scold them. Many children didn't resist because they didn't know what resistance was. They were stupid and couldn't react at all. 2 of them didn't even know how to cry. No matter how they were beaten or scolded, they just stood there and laughed foolishly. They didn't even know how to wipe their mouths. The younger sister wasn't the Snake Lord's biological sister. She was also adopted by the welfare home. She was dark and skinny. Her name was Little Bean Sprout. Once, when the director was beating Little Bean Sprout with a feather duster, the Snake Lord bumped into the director from behind. The director and her dark and fat husband shouted that they were going to drown the 2 of them in the pond. From then on, the 2 of them started their own lives. Fortunately, there were many strange people in Xiangxi. The Snake Lord was found and adopted by his master, One-Eyed Layman. Little Bean Sprout also had a place to stay. One-Eyed Layman didn't treat the Snake Lord well, but he wasn't bad either. Most importantly, he taught the Snake Lord everything he knew about controlling snakes. He thought that the Snake Lord was a genius. The first time the Snake Lord heard the word genius was from his master. He never thought that someone would think that he was a genius. When the Snake Lord was a teenager, One-Eyed Layman left and never came back. As a result, the Snake Lord only had his younger sister as his family and the poisonous creatures he raised in this world. If it wasn't for his sister, no one would care that he was alive, and no one would know that he was dead. He had come to this world, but many people did not know of his existence. Like those trees or rocks, he could also be a green-skinned snake. He would not leave any memory in people's minds. "I will only live if my sister is alive," said the Snake Lord. "If my sister dies, I won't live alone. So, I want to make a deal with you. Only if I'm alive will I have a chance to save my sister. Fang Yin looked at the triangular eyes of the Snake Lord lying on the deck and said, "If that's the case, I might as well kill you. When those people find out that you're dead, they'll kill your sister too. You'll still be together, isn't that good?" The Snake Lord was once again rendered speechless. "I don't care how pitiful you are, and I don't care how much you love your sister. You killed me twice, so I'll kill you twice. That is, if I can do it." Fang Yin coldly said, "Of course, why don't you tell me the details of your deal? If I happen to be interested, you might be able to keep your life. In my eyes, your life is worthless, but because you killed me, I want to kill you, and you're worth tens of thousands of gold coins. So, if your offer isn't enough to tempt me, then the deal is off." "Do you want a snake slave?" the Snake Lord asked in a hoarse voice. "Snake slave?" Fang Yin was surprised. He stared at the Snake Lord with a burning gaze and asked, "Are you willing to be my snake slave?" There was a record of the Snake Lord in the Hundred Years classics. Born in Xiangxi, the king of snakes. The flame of inheritance is passed down from generation to generation. Only when the old Snake Lord dies will a new Snake Lord be born. If they are willing to respect humans as their master, humans will be able to command hundreds of insects. Unfortunately, there was no detailed description of how to make the Snake Lord a snake slave. This must be a secret of the Snake King clan. "Yes," the Snake Lord firmly said. "Because I want to live, I want to save my sister. As long as my sister is alive, I am willing to be your slave, a bloodthirsty poisonous beast that kills and burns enemies for you. If my sister dies, then I will explode and die to accompany her. The great Snake Lord will not accept any human's orders. This is a choice that goes against my nature." Fang Yin exerted force with his foot, causing the Snake Lord to think that his head was about to be separated from his lower body. Fang Yin said with a look of disdain, "What bullshit, Snake Lord? You think you're the king of snakes just because you know how to play with a few snakes and raise a few toads? You're being stepped on by me and your life is hanging by a thread, yet you don't see your subjects coming to save you? Don't think of yourself as important, you're nothing but an ugly monster that plays with snakes. What? You don't like what I have to say? You're angry? You want to kill me? You want to explode? Come on, be angry. Kill me. Explode." The Snake Lord's chest was heaving up and down, breathing sounds were coming out of his mouth and coming in again. "Greedy, cunning, vicious, going back on your word and saying things that are as untrustworthy as farts. You have a strong ego so the lives of others aren't precious? You kill people at every turn, yet you can't stand it when people call you ugly? Who do you think you are? I only need to lift my foot to kill you. That's no different from stepping on an ant. Kill me. Hurry up and kill me," the Snake Lord shouted with a cruel voice. The Snake Lord was an impatient person. He couldn't stand such humiliation and humiliation. "See, even killing you is up to me to decide," Fang Yin sneered. "Now you know you're not that important, right? You're only begging me to spare your lowly life, don't even talk about making a deal with me. What right do you have to make a deal with me? Tell me." Fang Yin's voice softened a bit. "How do you want to become my snake slave?" The Snake Lord's triangular eyes hesitated for a split second, but still spoke up. "I'm willing to serve you as my master, I swear to obey your orders with my life. I don't believe your verbal promises. At least, I won't believe your words," Fang Yin said. "In order to save your sister, you came all the way here to kill a stranger like me. If I let you go now, you might not be able to save your sister and listen to their orders to come back to kill me. Would I do such a stupid thing?" The Snake Lord's expression kept changing, but in the end he gritted his teeth and said, "I'm willing to make a blood oath." "A blood oath? A blood oath? No need, I don't want your dirty blood to stain my clothes. I'll give you the snake eye," the Snake Lord said. "Snake eye?" Fang Yin was secretly happy but didn't show it. "What's that?" "Tell me. If it's not good, then this deal is over. I don't have the patience to keep you company. Give me a bit of power," the Snake Lord said. The tip of Fang Yan's foot loosened a bit, allowing the Snake Lord to gain a bit of power. His hands could move. His feet could move. His head could also move. However, all of these movements were under Fang Yan's control. He knew that if he resisted even the slightest bit, a thunderous strike would be waiting for him. Just one strike would be enough. After one strike he would die. The Snake Lord took off the black iron glove on his finger, then suddenly reached out with his claw and gouged out his left eyeball. Blood and flesh. Blood splattered everywhere. The Snake Lord took out a cowhide bag from his pocket and put his eyeball into it. He then gave the blood-stained pouch to Fang Yin and said, This is the snake eye that I've painstakingly practiced for 20 years. Now I'm your true snake slave, my life and death are in your hands. If you show even the slightest bit of dissatisfaction, I'll be devoured by your poisonous blood. If you crush the eyeball in the bag no matter how far I am, I will die on the spot. Fang Yen took the bag and weighed it in his hand. He said, "Why should I believe what you said? What if I let you go and you disappear in the blink of an eye? Do you think it's a snake's eye just because you say so? If I crush it and you still don't die, wouldn't that be a huge loss for me? No matter what, it's a good deal for you to exchange an eyeball for a life." A red hole formed by red flesh appeared in the Snake Lord's left eye, and black blood kept oozing out of the black hole. Therefore, when he was angry, his face became even more ferocious, and the black blood flowed even faster. His face was covered in blood, and even the deck of the ship was covered in puddles of blood. His body trembled violently, and he was so angry that he couldn't even speak. "I'm already like this. I'm already like this. Why don't you believe me?" The Snake Lord's eyes were bleeding and so was his heart. He felt so wrong that he wanted to cry. "Didn't you just say that others are greedy and cunning? How can you say such a thing? How many snake eyes do you have?" Fang Yen asked. "One." The Snake Lord gritted his teeth. His teeth were chattering and he felt that he was about to crush his black teeth. All Snake Lords only have one snake eye, and they can only cultivate this one. At first he didn't understand why his master was the one-eyed scholar, but later he understood that his master was also someone else's snake slave. However, he still didn't know who the master was that could tame his master. The snake's eye was like the legendary Dragon Ball. Of course, the Dragon Ball was hidden in the abdomen, and the useless little snakes could only cultivate one of their eyes into a bead. This was their natal bead, and if it was broken they would die. Of course, Fang Yen didn't know what effect this bead had for the time being. Fang Yen had taken a look just now, and the Snake Lord's snake eye was showing signs of crystallization, which proved that he had indeed cultivated it for decades. If he dug it out and gave it to Fang Yen, it would be the same as destroying his own cultivation. Fang Yen sighed softly and regretfully said, "If only there were two, we could first crush one as an experiment." That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.